those glowing blue eyes dripping with tears. You'd think she's the ultimate tragedy queen, right? But imagine overworking yourself to death as an author, only to wake up trapped inside your own webtoon as the tragic villain destined to die. Floosh! Wandering through a shimmering realm of starlight, an eerie divine voice echoes through the cosmic void, telling her to march forward like some pure maiden fulfilling her cosmic destiny. Shatter! Floating chains bind her soul as her shadow whispers a chilling promise that her very own curse is about to become her ultimate weapon in this brand new world. Sigh. A gentle hand strokes her hair as she drifts off, wrapped in the delicate scent of blooming hydrangeas. Manhwa artists really love giving us these gorgeous, ethereal visuals before dumping pure trauma on the main character, don't they? Cut back to reality. Our main girl here is Zhang Qinlin, an 18-year-old high school student who grinds endlessly as a freelance comic artist, spending every waking hour glued to her drawing tablet. Thud! Exhaustion finally catches up as she collapses straight onto the hardwood floor amidst a mountain of paper drafts, her body giving out after pushing way past her limits. Next thing she knows, boom, transmigration. She wakes up in the body of Amy Malvern, the young villainess she literally created with her own ink after passing out from extreme fatigue. Talk about a bad work-life balance. And here's the catch. Amy isn't just any side character. She's destined to go completely unhinged due to a tragic accident, leading straight to a dark, chaotic future. Honestly, if I found out my own OC was gonna lose her mind, I'd be looking for the exit button immediately. Snip, snap, enter Dean, the drop-dead gorgeous blonde butler with glasses who swoops in with a polite morning greeting. Look at that sleek suit. Why are Webtoon secondary characters always styled like they just stepped off a fashion runway? Then we've got Alan, her twin brother, who's out here dramatically swearing to be her personal knight forever. He gently pats her cheek, dead set on protecting her at all costs. And let me introduce Gray, a seemingly low-key knight who's holding a fluffy little rabbit. Don't let the innocent pet fool you, though, because this guy is secretly stacked with ridiculous, unexplainable power. Let's rewind a bit to see how this disaster even started. Back in her original life, Qinlin was just a regular student trying to juggle high school while drawing webtoons non-stop to pay the bills. Knock, knock! Her worried assistant brings in a tray of medicine, but Qinlin just brushes her off, insisting on grinding out pages for 20 straight hours like a total workaholic. Man, drawing manga really is a full-time extreme sport. Even with her assistant begging her to take a break and rest up, Qinlin just smiles through the fatigue, totally ignoring the glaring warning signs her body is sending her. Cough. Blood suddenly spills right out of her mouth. Her assistant's face turns pale as terror strikes the room in an instant. Gasp! She clutches her throat, coughing up blood again and again as her sight starts fading to black. Okay, serious note artists, please take your break times because this scene got dark real fast. Slam! Papers fly everywhere as Qinlin passes out cold on the floor while her assistant frantically screams her name, desperately calling for an ambulance. Fast forward to the new realm. Amy is sleeping peacefully nestled against her twin brother Alan in a lush garden of hydrangeas, looking like an absolute picture of innocence. Chirp! Bright morning light hits the grand gates of Malvern Duke Hall in the Carpal Empire, where a cute little bird sits chirping on a ginkgo branch. Amy slowly opens her eyes in a massive regal canopy bed, totally disoriented as an overwhelming sense of weirdness hits her all at once. What is happening? She panics, pulling the blanket over her head like a cute chibi gremlin while having a complete crisis over where on earth she is. Can't blame her. I'd lose my mind too if I woke up in a random Victorian mansion. A smooth, elegant voice interrupts her existential crisis with a cheerful morning greeting, making her freeze in her tracks. Gasp! She looks up to find Dean, the ridiculously handsome butler, leaning right over her bed asking if she's feeling under the weather. Shriek! Her high-pitched scream echoes all across the mansion estate as she scrambles backwards, telling him to stay away while her brain finally connects the dots. It hits her like a lightning bolt. She didn't just transmigrate, she got sucked right into her own comic, ZU Book of Hua, and ended up in the body of the young villainess. Now, in her original story, the plot was supposed to focus on a sweet romance between a maiden from the Huayue Kingdom and the dashing prince of the Carpal Empire. But webtoon logic dictates every romance needs a menace to create drama. Because let's be real, a comic without a proper villain is boring. You can't have a saintly female lead without a ruthless antagonist lurking in the shadows to spice things up. And that antagonist is none other than Amy Malvern, the Duke's arrogant daughter who rocks elaborate gothic dresses, an intimidating aura, and a pure bully mentality. Look at that visual design, though. The artist definitely cooked on her design. To achieve her wicked goals, Amy was written to be cold, ruthless, and fearless, dirtying her hands with crimes until her plans got exposed and she ultimately took her own life. Talk about a grim fate. Terrified of getting exposed, Chibi Amy stammers out and asks Dean who he is. Poor Dean's heart shatters into a million pieces instantly, sobbing in full dramatic fashion, thinking he's about to get fired on the spot. Amy sweats nervously, bowing her head and trying to cover up by pretending she's lost all her memories. Squawk! The little bird outside watches in total disbelief as a frantic scream rings out through the courtyard, begging the butler not to faint right then and there. Dean clutches his chest in sheer agony, repeatedly crying out that he's her most loyal servant, while begging her not to throw him away. Bro is taking this way too personally. It's hilarious. Chirp! Outside, the birds are practically getting front-row entertainment as the chaotic screaming continues from the master bedroom. Meanwhile, Amy takes a quiet moment to remember her character's tragic past, holding a glowing sparkler at dusk while reflecting on how lonely the original Amy must have felt. Scratch, scratch! After Dean finally pulls himself together, he gently brushes her long silver hair. Amy feels a strange sense of déjà vu, watching her own creation take care of her like a real father figure. Later on, down in the mansion's first-floor study, towering bookshelves set a serious, quiet atmosphere for an urgent family meeting. Dean walks in nervously, addressing Amy's brother Alan with sweat dripping down his face as he prepares to deliver some shocking news. He reveals that Miss Amy seems to have suffered total memory loss. While Amy stands there looking as calm and collected as a cucumber, her internal chibi self is running around in circles with red warning flags blaring everywhere. The duality here is pure comedy gold. Hearing the news, Alan sits frozen at his desk with documents in hand, his brain literally lagging as he tries to process what Dean just said. Bam! He abruptly stands up and slams his hands onto the desk, scaring the living daylights out of little Amy. Swoosh! In a split second, Alan leaps over and wraps his arms around her in a super tight, suffocating bear hug. He buries his face in her shoulder, crying tears of relief as he whispers how grateful he is that she's conscious and willing to stay by his side. Amy's eyes swirl with dizziness from being squished so hard, stammering that he's hugging her way too tight, while Alan just blinks back in confusion. Scream! A loud screech echoes out the window as Amy yells at them for clinging onto her so much, while the little bird on the tree branch literally puts on tiny earplugs to block out the noise. Okay, that bird is officially the best background character in this entire story. Realizing he went overboard, Alan gives a sweet, sheepish smile, explaining that he just got way too emotional after she was out cold for days, prompting Amy to internally reflect on her dramatic reaction. Dean cuts in with a serious tone, asking what they should tell the Lord, causing Amy's chibi face to break out in sweat, wondering who this mysterious Lord figure could be. Alan calmly dismisses Dean's concerns, reassuring him that dealing with the Lord is no big deal at all. The only thing that matters in this house is that Amy is safe and healthy. He leans down with the softest expression, gently touching her cheek as Amy blinks up at her brother, her heart melting just a little bit. Stare! They both end up staring at each other in chibi form, secretly thinking the other one is the absolute cutest thing on the planet, surrounded by floating pink blossoms. Imagine waking up as a villainess only to find a hyperprotective twin brother invading your personal space. As Alan gently strokes Amy's face, her internal danger alarms start blaring at maximum volume because being this close to a character you created is purely nerve-wracking. Terrified that her fake memory loss cover story might blow up in her face, Amy slowly takes a step back, trying to put some much-needed distance between herself and her suspiciously affectionate brother. Realizing she needs a meat shield immediately, she dives right behind Dean, using her handsome butler as a human barrier, while Alan stands there utterly confused by her sudden flight-or-fight response. Gulp! As Amy panics behind Dean, her brain goes into overdrive trying to place this silver-haired boy. That's when lightning strikes her memory. This adorable kid is actually Alan, Amy's twin brother from the original webtoon story. In the original plotline, Alan was basically a tragic side character NPC who got poisoned to death on his 12th birthday, giving him almost zero screen time. Man, talks about writing a brutal backstory for your own characters.
Oof, a wave of self-inflicted guilt hits Amy like a freight train as she remembers she's the ruthless author who condemned this sweet kid to die young, while Alan looks at her with sad puppy eyes, wondering why his sister forgot him. Seeking absolute refuge from the overwhelming guilt, Amy grips Dean's suit coat like a life raft, leaving poor Dean completely caught in the middle of this chaotic family drama. With her mind spinning like a whirlpool, Amy turns into a full-on dizzy chibi gremlin, completely losing her ability to speak as the psychological pressure reaches absolute critical mass. Swoosh! Before anyone can interrogate her further, she blurted out a frantic excuse about having urgent business to attend to, and bolts out of the room like she applied rocket fuel to her shoes. She doesn't even look back as she sprints down the hallway, leaving behind two stick-figure outlines of Dean and Alan who can only watch her disappear into the distance in pure disbelief. Sigh. Dean adjusted his glasses with a mixture of awe and exasperation, internally acknowledging that when his young mistress decides to run away, she sets absolute speed records. Meanwhile, Alan regains his composure and holds a stack of urgent documents, dropping a massive bombshell that their intimidating father is finally returning home. Talk about jumping from the frying pan straight into the fire. Meanwhile, check out this gorgeous artwork of Amy dressed in ethereal celestial robes. The artist really loves dropping these breathtaking, dreamy visuals right before dropping intense family drama on us. Tap, tap, tap. Running through the grand marble corridors of Malvern Duke Hall, Amy internally complains about how cliché her new reality feels, only to completely lose her footing and crash straight into someone. Crush! Before she hits the cold floor, a long arm wrapped in a white cloak swoops in and catches her gently, whispering a soft warning to be careful. Blushing redder than a strawberry, Amy stammers out a quick apology, looking up to see who just saved her from a very embarrassing fall. Glimmer? The man looking back at her is an absolute visual masterpiece with flowing silver hair, striking crimson eyes, and a magical aura surrounded by sparkling blue roses, as he calls her his darling princess. Kneeling down to her eye level, he cradles her gently, his expression softening as he notices just how exhausted and pale the young girl looks. Honestly, look at that majestic lighting and those glowing blue roses. This webtoon artist pulled out all the stops just to make this man look like a high fantasy deity. But instead of swooning, Chibi Amy tilts her head and asks him point blank who on earth he is, instantly stabbing an invisible dagger through the mysterious man's heart. Pat, pat. Recovering from the emotional damage, the man gently places his gloved hand on her head, giving her a sweet pat while holding back a deep sigh. Amy freezes under his palm, sweating profusely because even though his gesture is gentle, his presence radiates an overwhelmingly terrifying aura that makes her hair stand on end. Chill. With a bright, cheerful smile that completely contrasts his deadly murderous intent, the silver-haired lord calls for Kano, and a maid instantly materializes out of thin air behind him. Kano steps forward with a blank, formal expression, while Amy panics internally, wondering where this scary maid even came from. In a cold, authoritative tone, the Lord orders Kano to summon both Alan and Dean to the drawing room immediately because he has a few urgent questions that need answering. Achoo! Somewhere else in the mansion, Alan and Dean both let out a synchronized sneeze as if sensing that their doom is rapidly approaching. Next up, we get a hilarious fourth wall break where the tired author and editor introduce themselves in cute chibi forms, apologizing for the short updates while crying over their empty bank accounts. The author even shares a real-life shot of drawing on the tablet while struggling through exhaustion. Props to comic artists everywhere because grinding out webtoons is a serious full-time battle. Shifting back to the story, we see a heartwarming illustration of Alan protectively holding his sleepy twin sister amidst a field of blooming hydrangeas. Boom! Cut back to the drawing room where the tension is so thick you could cut it with a knife. The Duke sits on a grand armchair with little Amy perched on his lap, demanding a full explanation from Alan and Dean. With glowing red eyes full of suspicion, the Duke gritted his teeth, demanding to know why his precious daughter doesn't recognize him and what on earth happened while he was away. The atmosphere in the room drops below freezing as the Duke's dark aura flares up, radiating intense pressure that makes everyone sweat. Shiver. Trapped right in the center of the storm, Chibi Amy trembles violently with teary eyes, terrified that one wrong move might end her second life before it even starts. Gasp! That's when the realization hits her like a bolt of lightning. If this man called her his daughter, then he's none other than Forneray Melwyn, the formidable Duke of the household. Amy's jaw practically hits the floor. She looks at him in complete shock. She wrote him as a middle-aged father, so why does the Duke look like a gorgeous 20-something K-pop idol? Unaware of his sister's internal crisis, Alan closes his eyes and takes a deep breath, preparing to explain the dangerous situation. Spark, a sharp, silent glare breaks out between Dean and the Duke as tension crackles in the air between the loyal butler and his master. Alan holds up a stack of official documents, revealing that just a few days ago, Amy secretly snuck out and went to the Imperial Palace all by herself. Hearing this, everyone's eyes lock onto little Amy, who sits on the Duke's lap, looking completely innocent and bewildered. Sweat. Amy internally screams at them to stop staring, reminding herself that since she transmigrated into this body recently, she has zero clue what the original Amy was up to. Sensing her distress, Maid Kano steps in calmly, scooping Amy up into her arms and offering to take the young lady to rest while the men finish their serious discussion. Whoosh! The Duke instantly reaches out like a pouting child demanding his daughter back, but Kano casually dodges his grasp and tells him to watch his tone in front of the child. As she gets carried away, Amy looks back longingly at a portrait of the late Duchess, wishing she could stay longer to gather more crucial information to survive in this house. Alan continues his report, explaining in a solemn voice that by the time they managed to track Amy down after her palace trip, she had already collapsed and lost consciousness. The Duke rests his chin on his gloved hand, his red eyes narrowing in deep thought, as he questions how a 10-year-old child managed to pull off such a clandestine operation without the palace noticing. With an annoyed scowl crossing his ridiculously handsome face, the Duke mutters how deeply frustrating this whole situation is becoming. The grand drawing room falls into a heavy, thoughtful silence as the three men ponder the hidden motives behind young Amy's mysterious actions. Breaking the silence, Alan declares that he and Amy will head to the palace tomorrow, instructing the Duke to disguise himself as a humble servant to keep a watchful eye on her. Think. The Duke rests his hand over his mouth, his mind racing as he realizes that even though Amy is alive, the underlying conspiracy surrounding her is getting far more dangerous. Crash! Ethereal chains and white feathers shatter across a pitch-black void, hinting at a dark secret, that the child originally meant to replace Amy is dead, setting up an intense web of secrets for the next chapter. Clank, a mysterious shift in the realm begins as Amy's mind swirls with cogs and gears, staring in utter disbelief at an inverted, white-haired girl who looks like she was ripped straight out of a tragic gothic fairy tale. Floating in a serene, endless void of sparkling blue light, the mysterious child stands over a mirror-like ocean, her ghostly white hair flowing gracefully in the quiet cosmic breeze. Clasping her hands tightly against her chest, the young girl lets out a soft, tearful gasp, overwhelmed with sheer relief that her miraculous gamble actually worked. Smile! With tears glittering in her radiant blue eyes, she smiles softly to herself, clinging on to the overwhelming desire to finally stay alive in this cruel world. Snip, snip! Suddenly, the scene shifts to a lively room where young Chen Qi proudly trims his own pinkish locks with scissors, only for a fiery red-haired toddler to grab the loose hair, prompting Chen to yell at him to keep his hands off. Enter the elegant master. Carrying the red-haired kid under his arm like a bag of groceries, the long-haired, glasses-wearing lord calmly asks Chan if he's packed his bags yet, since their boat to Capel has officially docked. Chen flips his hair back confidently, claiming he looks way too handsome to worry about a bad haircut, but his master reminds him with a sharp glance that this trip isn't a cozy vacation, it's a high-stakes mission. Wink! Wrapping up this charming little intermission, our adorable chibi duo strikes a playful pose, waving goodbye to the viewers before we dive straight back into the main storyline drama. Gasp! Transported right to Kapir's bustling second shopping district, Chibi Amy stands in awe amidst colorful fruit stalls and European-style clock towers, realizing every single detail she once drew on paper has officially come to life right before her eyes. Man, just take a second to appreciate this background art. The sunlit stone pathways, cozy brick houses, and blooming cherry blossom petals really make this fantasy town feel super atmospheric and alive. But wait, her jaw drops as she spots a familiar blonde figure strolling through the crowd, carrying a massive brown paper bag stuffed with freshly baked baguettes, while wearing the sweetest, most innocent smile imaginable. Flashback, back at the mansion before they left, Amy had asked Alan to go for a stroll outside, but poor Alan was completely buried under mountains of ducal paperwork, crying tears of frustration because he couldn't leave his desk. Striking a ridiculously dramatic pose with a red rose clamped between his teeth, Dean glides into the room out of nowhere, sparkling brightly as he offers his top-tier escort services to the young mistress.
Dean leans in closer, adjusting his glasses with a mischievous glint in his eyes, as he reminds Alan that going outside was Amy's very first request since waking up, leaving Chibi Amy sweating nervously at the heavy tension in the air.
Grip, convinced but utterly consumed by twin brother jealousy, Alan grips his neckerchief and threatens to destroy Dean if Amy returns even slightly unhappy, while Dean casually gives a shiny thumbs up of absolute confidence.
Munch! Back in the present, Dean hands Amy a warm, delicious pastry, and as she munches on it happily, she internally notes that even though Dean is a great guy, his over-the-top enthusiasm can be a little exhausting. Sparkle, pointing toward a nearby storefront, Dean enthusiastically tells Amy to wait right there while he runs over to grab the latest special pastries from the famous Halcyon Bakery, leaving Amy wondering if he's just buying them for himself. Watching her tall butler march off with boundless energy, Amy takes another bite of her bread, chuckling silently at how utterly chaotic yet devoted her personal attendant really is. Taking a peaceful walk down the cobblestone street, Amy admires the calm, cheerful vibe of the city, realizing that aside from the historical setting, it's not all that different from the modern world she left behind. Scream! Out of nowhere, an ear-splitting shriek shatters the peaceful atmosphere. Poor Chibi Amy nearly jumps out of her skin, crumbs flying everywhere as she continues eating her pastry while looking around in total confusion. Point. A snobbish young girl dressed in an overly frilly green dress glares down with utter disgust, screeching at the top of her lungs about an uncivilized commoner ruining her day. Gasp! A dirty, poorly dressed boy stammers in absolute terror, trembling as the angry noble girl berates him for daring to soil her pristine, expensive outfit. Sob! Dropping to his knees, the terrified boy grabs the hem of her green dress, desperately begging for forgiveness, while the arrogant noble girl furiously demands that the dirty serf unhand her immediately. Wiping the crumbs off her mouth, Amy observes the chaotic scene with a deadpan expression, quickly realizing something feels completely staged. The kid is acting terrified, yet he's the one refusing to let go of her dress. Grab. Speak of the devil, the dirty boy suddenly lunges over and grabs Amy's checkered dress, crying out for the kind-hearted miss to save him. Amy's eyes bug out in shock. Why on earth is this kid targeting her when there are dozens of adults around? Stomp. Marching over with heavy footsteps, the green-dressed noble girl prepares to blow a fuse, only to freeze dead in her tracks as her eyes lock onto Amy's face, instantly recognizing who she is. Smirk. A nasty, arrogant smirk spreads across the brat's face as she sneers, realizing that this unassuming girl in simple clothes is none other than the infamous half-wit of the Grand Ducal household. Finger guns! The noble girl mocks Amy's plain outfit, claiming it suits a half-wit, but Amy deadpans right back, dropping finger guns and stating her simple dress still looks 10 times better than that ridiculous cabbage dress. Cabbage? Floating cabbages literally appear around the girl's head as she turns beet red with rage. Meanwhile, the sneaky street kid whispers that she has a short fuse and casually slips away into the crowd unnoticed. Poke, harassing Amy with a sharp finger, the brat insults her as a lifeless doll who should crawl back home like a stray dog. Amy just stares back blankly, wondering which random cannon fodder family this annoying kid even belongs to. Flaunt! Puffing out her chest with ultimate snobbery, the girl loudly announces herself as Penny Bayard, the rising star of the social realm and proud daughter of Viscounty Bayard. Sweat. Chibi Amy blinks in complete silence, her brain slowly processing the titles as she repeats, Bayard? Vice County? In her head. Ding! Time for a quick manhwa rank lesson. The screen cuts to a fourth-wall classroom where teacher Zheng Qinlin explains that Duke, Marcus, Earl, Viscount, Baron, meaning a duke's daughter vastly outranks a petty viscount's kid. Back in reality, Chibi Amy sweats heavily while looking at Penny's smug, puffed-out face, questioning why on earth a lower-ranking noble child is acting so ridiculously proud in front of a duke's daughter. Shaking her head with an icy glare, Amy decides that since this spoiled brat needs a harsh reality check, she'll personally demonstrate what it truly means to be a ruthless top-tier villainess. Up next, leaning in close with a terrifyingly cold, menacing aura, Amy darkens the mood entirely, warning Penny to examine her own low position before daring to defy someone far above her rank. Rooftop watch? Meanwhile, up on a nearby roof, a sleek black-haired boy with heterochromia eyes keeps a watchful eye on Amy, relieved that the street boy meant no harm, while looking around for the absent Dean.
glare. Circling back to the tense standoff, Penny continues her arrogant tirade, completely unaware that Amy's gentle expression has vanished into an icy wall of pure intimidation. Crossing her arms with absolute composure, Amy radiates a chilling aura that instantly drops the street's temperature, ready to break this spoiled child's pride into tiny little pieces. Meanwhile, back at the Morwen ducal mansion, poor Alan rests his head against his hand at his desk, staring blankly at his endless paperwork while worrying about how Amy is faring out in the city. A somber flashback enters his mind, recalling how before Amy lost her memories, she was like a hollow, motionless puppet wrapped in invisible chains, a docile robot without a single spark of life in her eyes. Looking at the sky, Alan admits that even though his sister has become so lively and full of expression recently, his protective instincts still make him worry constantly whenever she's out of his sight. Frustration, slamming his face into a hardcover book, memories of past tragedy and suffering flood Alan's mind, making his heart ache with overwhelming guilt and protective rage. Snap. Unable to take the anxiety any longer, Alan snaps his pen shut and abandons his desk, deciding that the ducal work can wait until he personally verifies his sister's safety. Flap, flap, a magnificent purple magical bird perches nearby as we cut back to the market, where Penny is still huffing and puffing, shouting at Amy not to think a stern expression will scare her. Tap. Raising two delicate fingers to her chin, Amy gazes down at the noisy child with lethal, razor-sharp blue eyes, stepping into her full, noble authority. Shiver. Lowering her voice into a bone-chilling whisper, Amy coldly breaks down the harsh reality. In terms of political rank, family wealth, and absolute power, she stands untouchably higher than the Byard family. Leaning in so close that Penny can feel her icy breath, Amy places a gloved hand near her collar, asking her straight up if she's truly prepared to suffer the brutal consequences of disrespecting a ducal house. Push! Completely terrified by Amy's overwhelming villainous presence, Penny shrieks in sheer panic and forcefully shoves Amy away, stammering out a tearful apology as her arrogance completely shatters. Dash! Blushing furiously from humiliation, Penny turns around and bolts down the street in a massive cloud of dust, leaving chibi Amy scratching her head, wondering why on earth the girl was blushing while running away. Ever wonder what happens when a mysterious stalker with heterochromia eyes watches your every move from the rooftops? Well, our shadowy watchdog is lurking above the marketplace right now, letting out a heavy sigh of relief that the street kid didn't actually harm Amy, but he's already grinding his teeth wondering where her slick butler Diane vanished to. Meanwhile, in a dark alleyway, that dirty street boy is nervously reporting back to his secret boss, confessing that even though he successfully baited the noble girls into a massive catfight, it didn't really pull off the dramatic distraction they were hoping for. Smirk? Holding a brown paper bag stuffed with baguettes, Dion casually strokes his chin with a sinister grin, admitting that manipulating little Amy isn't going to be a walk in the park anymore now that she's sharp as a tack. Talk about a two-faced butler who definitely has way too many dark secrets under his belt. Tremble. The poor street kid shakes like a leaf as Diane notices the watchdog kid standing right behind him. Diane doesn't even flinch. He just turns around with an arrogant smirk, taunting the young knight and asking what on earth he thinks he can do about it. Atmospheric shift. The lighting turns completely pitch black as webs fill the screen, accompanied by Diane's bone-chilling inner monologue declaring that as long as Amy is breathing, she will never, ever escape his invisible trap. Man, look at that artistic shift! Diane raises a gloved finger with glowing green eyes and a devilish smile, looking like an absolute final boss straight out of a dark fantasy thriller. Crash! A psychological image of Amy's glass statue shatters into a million sharp pieces right before our eyes. Terrified by the suffocating malice in the air, the street kid stammers a quick farewell and bolts out of the alley at top speed. Diane casually waves goodbye to the runner, but as his eyes narrow, the mood instantly drops below zero. If you stay around this guy for 1 second too long, your survival chances drop to absolute zero. Swoosh! Out of nowhere, the dark-haired watchdog leaps through the sky like a shadowy assassin, unsheathing a lethal black blade with wind whipping around his cloak while Diane just puts a quiet finger to his lips. Boom! A massive golden magic circle erupts in midair as the watchdog dives down for a lethal strike. The caption labels him as the ruthless watchdog of the Morwen household, and honestly, this aerial combat art panel goes completely hard. Clang! Blades spark as the watchdog presses his sword against Diane's magical shield, calling out the blonde butler as the infamous imposter knight and a complete madman belonging to the royal family. chuckle. Even while holding off a lethal sword strike with one hand, Diane still manages to hold his bag of freshly baked bread without dropping a single baguette. He casually chuckles off the insult, promising they'll finish their little life-or-death catch-up another day. Cut back to the main street where adorable chibi Amy is crossing her arms and tapping her foot, pouting about how her dummy butler has taken a whole eternity just to buy a couple of pastries. Amy rolls her eyes in annoyance, but just as her pacing hits rock bottom, Dian glides into view, bowing softly and offering a smooth apology for keeping his precious young mistress waiting. Sparkle! Amy turns around expecting pastries, only to freeze in total disbelief. Dan is literally glowing with shoujo sparkles like a high-tier visual model, but the bread bag has completely vanished into thin air. Seriously, where did the baguettes go? Did he eat them during the fight? Squinting with a sharp gaze, Amy drops her playful attitude and coldly orders Diane to kneel down so she can take a closer look at his face. Bend. Ever the obedient servant, Diane gracefully lowers his tall frame right down to eye level with his tiny mistress without asking a single question. Touch! Reaching out her hand, Amy gently cups Diane's cheek, making the tall butler tilt his head in genuine surprise. Amy lifts his messy golden bangs to reveal a fresh, bleeding scratch across his cheekbone, asking him with a deadpan expression what on earth happened to his face while he was away. Brooding! The camera cuts around the corner where our watchdog boy is leaning against a brick wall, nursing a matching scratch on his own cheek. Meanwhile, Dion glibly lies right to Amy's face, claiming he just ran into a feisty little puppy that tried to steal his treats. Chew! Leaning into her palm, Diane places a suave, theatrical kiss right on Amy's tiny gloved hand, whispering about how utterly adorable she is when she worries about him. Goosebumps. Amy's entire chibi body shivers violently with absolute disgust, cringing at his cringe-level romance moves as she reminds him to worry about his own injuries instead. Wipe? Closing the distance, Diane gently wipes breadcrumbs off Amy's cheek with a surprisingly soft and tender expression, reminding her that a young duchess should always maintain her flawless appearance. Glares. The watchdog boy peeks around the wall, radiating pure jealousy, mentally screaming at Diane to take his hands off the miss. But Diane just chuckles internally at his rival's reaction, smoothly telling Amy they need to head home to prepare for a major event tomorrow. Tap, tap. Shifting scenes down the block, the snobbish noble girl Penny stomps down the alleyway, completely red-faced as she mutters to herself about how horribly embarrassing her encounter with Amy was. Blush. Clasping her hands over her racing heart, Penny remembers Amy's icy, ethereal stare. She was supposed to be Amy's rival, but she can't even deny that the ducal daughter looked like a breathtaking goddess. Crouching in a corner, Penny begins sniffling with worry, wondering how on earth she's going to complete the secret mission her father assigned her. But wait, check out that terrifying purple shadow creeping up right behind her. Gasp! A giant, monstrous purple bird with glowing red eyes creeps out from behind the wall, locking its predatory gaze directly onto the oblivious noble girl. Turn! Sensing a chilling presence behind her back, Penny turns her head around with a confused murmur to check out what's lurking in the shadows. Kia! An ear-splitting shriek echoes across the sky as the monster bird snatches Penny up and disappears into the clouds. The promo box leaves us hanging with massive teasers about who kidnapped Penny and what her secret mission was. Recap! A quick chapter recap panel reminds us of poor Penny sulking over her father's incredible mission right before that giant bird closed in for the swoop. Flash! The screen blasts with a bright sky backdrop as Penny's panic scream vibrates through the entire shopping district. Talk about an abrupt off-screen abduction. Cut to a lavishly decorated mansion room where a handsome nobleman casually twirls a feather quill, listening to his trembling maids report that his daughter Penny has officially vanished after confronting the Morwyn Duchess. Smirk. This guy is none other than Viscount Bayard. Instead of panicking, a sinister smirk spreads across his face as he praises his missing daughter, realizing her disappearance gives him the perfect political excuse to corner the Morwyn family. Nightfall. As a gorgeous full moon illuminates the night sky, we find Amy leaning over her marble balcony, staring up at the stars and wondering what happened to her real world and who's currently drawing her manhwa back home. Her deep blue eyes darken with a tragic, distant look. Even with all this luxury and power, being trapped inside a fictional story is starting to weigh heavily on her soul. Staring down at the third-floor stone courtyard below, a dark thought crosses her mind. If she leaps off this edge, will the shock send her soul right back to her original modern life?
step. Amy places her bare foot right onto the cold stone railing, ready to test her crazy theory. But right as she's about to jump, young Master Eli comes screaming out of nowhere, lunging forward with all his strength to grab her. Grab! Eli tackles her back onto the balcony floor, holding her tightly in his arms with tears in his eyes as he screams at her for doing something so incredibly dangerous. Nearby, a plump little white bird perches on the ledge, sweating bullets and looking ridiculously guilty for not stopping the young miss sooner. Pout! Back inside the dimly lit bedroom, Eli and Amy sit back to back against the glass doors. When Amy softly asks if he's angry, Eli turns his head with a super adorable pout, loudly admitting that he is furious. Guilt. Looking down at her lap with teary eyes, Emmy softly apologizes to her brother, promising that she'll never try anything life-threatening like that again. Feeling the intense trembling in Eli's hands as he grips her tightly, Emmy's heart aches with guilt. She knows she's just an intruder who took over his real sister's body, and she doesn't deserve his tragic level of devotion. Sunrise, the next morning, dawns brightly over the majestic blue spires of the Morwin estate as birds chirp in the clear sky. Swoosh! Diane pulls back the heavy velvet curtains, letting golden morning sunlight flood the room as he warmly announces that it's time for the young miss to wake up. Snuggling deeply into her fluffy yellow pillow, groggy Chibi Emmy tries to ignore him until Diane casually drops a massive bombshell. She has an official audience with His Majesty the King today. Whoosh! Emmy's eyes pop open in sheer horror. Before her brain can even process the news, Diane teleports her from her bed right onto the vanity chair in literally 1 second flat. Talk about elite butler efficiency. Flashback. A glitchy 4K camera overlay recalls the chaotic scene from last night when Eli was tackling Emmy off the 3rd floor ledge. Panic! Chibi Emmy breaks into a cold sweat, realizing that Eli was so traumatized by her jump attempt last night that he completely forgot to mention the Royal Palace invitation. The camera pans over to Eli standing at the doorway dressed in a sharp military uniform, his cold blue gaze fixed forward as he reveals that the escort team is waiting outside to take them straight to the king. Imagine waking up expecting a chill morning, only to find a mysterious, hyper-dressed bodyguard posted right outside your bedroom door like a total final boss. Emmy's barely awake, but her snarky butler Dion already left a sassy note telling her to wake up and look presentable while casually teasing her. Yawning and rubbing her sleepy eyes, Emmy opens the door with zero energy left in her body. Creak. But as soon as her vision clears, the sheer awkwardness of the situation instantly kicks her brain into overdrive. Standing in the hallway is a stoic, mysterious kid rocking an insanely cool outfit and heterochromatic red and purple eyes. Emmy's internal alarms go off as she realizes this child bodyguard is definitely the guy Diane was talking about earlier. Swoosh! The young knight drops down onto one knee with pure military precision, introducing himself as Gray, her new temporary shadow bodyguard. Emmy just stares at him in complete confusion, internally screaming because this dude was never even in the original webtoon she wrote. Placing his hand over his heart, Gray vows to execute every command without question. But when he opens those wild, glowing red and purple eyes, you can tell this kid is packing some serious high-tier combat stats. Emmy's fangirl mode instantly activates. With sparkling star eyes, she holds back a squeal, completely obsessing over his dull-colored eyes because, let's be honest, heterochromia in anime automatically makes you 10 times cooler. Atmospheric shift. Suddenly, the bright mood drops to total pitch black. Through a creepy, fleshy eyeball perspective, something sinister is watching Emmy's every move from the shadows with a disturbing curiosity. Shiver. A sudden chill runs down Emmy's spine as a dark, ominous feather gently drifts through the air right beside her face. The mood instantly turns ice cold, making her realize she's definitely not alone. Glancing toward the window, Emmy senses an overwhelming surge of pure malice lurking nearby. Meanwhile, perched right on a golden tree branch outside, that weird cat-tailed bird tilts its head, radiating a dangerously spooky aura. Talk about top-tier suspenseful art. Snip. Cut to a whole different kingdom in the YU division, where a stylish young boy named Chen Kui is casually chopping off his long locks with a pair of golden scissors, admiring his own handsome reflection like a total narcissist. Admirably fluffing up his freshly cut pink hair, Kui smugly smirks to himself, confident that no matter what haircut he gets, his insane visual levels remain totally undefeated. Stretch! Striking a goofy, hyper-energetic pose, the kid announces he's completely prepped and ready to hit the road for his next big assignment. With a confident glint in his bright purple eyes, QE locks in his focus. Honestly, you gotta love how manhwa authors always introduce these flashy side characters right before a major plot shift. He glances down at an official bounty poster detailing a target, a mutated Capellian bird spirit with a cat's tail that escaped after causing mass chaos. Meanwhile, back on the main track, Emmy leans back in deep thought, wondering what kind of unhinged tyrant the legendary Emperor of Kapir actually is behind closed doors. Dramatic pause! The scene cuts to a high-tier noble slowly opening his piercing emerald green eyes, radiating an absolute aura of overwhelming authority and dangerous charm. Meet Reynold Kapir, the current ruler of the Kapir Empire. Dressed in a dangerously unbuttoned ruffled shirt, he offers a suave smirk, apologizing with smooth, theatrical fake politeness that screams final villain energy. In the dark shadows, a stern voice cuts through the air, firmly reminding the young operative that this incoming mission isn't some casual vacation walk in the park. Rumble! Cut to the high seas where a massive, multi-tiered wooden warship cuts through the ocean waves under a bright blue sky. Sitting recklessly on the top roof of the ship's pagoda, QE flips through his mission dossier in disbelief, complaining that his big, high-level task is literally just hunting down a glorified magical bird. Examining the creature's profile, QE's eyes narrow as he realizes this mutated beast has been hopping countries. A sneaky smirk spreads across his face. Now things are finally getting interesting. Shout! Down on the deck, a stressed-out crewmate spots the pink-haired kid dangling off the roof and loses his absolute mind, screaming at the top of his lungs. Panic. The sailor yells at QE to get his crazy butt down before he falls into the sea, but QE just offers a cute little chibi apology, totally unbothered by the life-threatening height. Classic chaotic protagonist behavior. Shielding his eyes against the glaring sun, QE peers out toward the horizon as a majestic skyline begins to emerge from the sea mist. The rugged crew member crosses his arms with a confident nod, announcing that they've officially made landfall at their destination. Whoosh! The massive sails billow in the wind as the ship pulls into port, officially welcoming us to the glowing empire of Light Kapir. Cue the epic world-building background. Kapir is known far and wide as the radiant empire powered by Murat, filled with citizens who worship light and freedom. But beneath all that shiny golden architecture lies a dark, bloody history. 500 years ago, a massive, bloody rebellion led by the Kapir family completely wiped out the old tyrant regime. Fast forward to the present day, and the guy holding all the absolute power is none other than Emperor Reynold Kapir. Flip-clop! Back on the cobblestone streets, an extravagant royal carriage rolls under bright yellow ginkgo trees. Inside, Emmy rubs her chin in deep stress, realizing that while she wrote the basic outline of this world, her actual memory of the details is totally hazy. Tap. The carriage comes to a smooth halt right in front of a towering red spire, as her father gently announces that they've finally arrived at the royal palace. Peeking out the window with wide, nervous blue eyes, Emmy takes a deep breath to steel her nerves for whatever political madness waits him inside. Gasp! The camera pans up to reveal the stunning, fairy tale-like Kapir Royal Palace, towering into the sky with red rooftops and grand clock towers. But despite the gorgeous view, Emmy's stomach is knotting up in pure anxiety. Roar! Before they can even set foot through the gates, a frantic noble guy comes charging out of nowhere like an absolute lunatic, screaming at the top of his lungs for the Morwins to give him back his daughter. It's Viscount Bayard. He hysterically accuses Emmy of kidnapping and imprisoning poor Penny out of pure spite, while Gray stands guard looking utterly disgusted, silently questioning if everyone in this family is completely brain dead. Crackle! Losing his mind to pure rage, the Viscount's eyes glow a terrifying crimson as he slams his hand onto the ground, unleashing a dark magic circle to blow everyone straight to hell. Panic! The palace guards scream in horror, trying to tackle the wild noble as the lethal spell crackles across the stone floor right beneath Gray and Emmy. Boom! Out of nowhere, an intense, crushing magical pressure suffocates the entire courtyard as a cold voice scoffs at the absolute audacity of someone causing a scene at the palace gates. Sparkle! Enter the Duke of Morwen. Floating in a sea of glowing ice crystals and intricate magic circles, he looks like an absolute god of war dropping in to settle the score. Gray and Emmy freeze in total awe, gasping at the Duke's legendary presence as he casually raises his gloved hand and commands absolute silence.
Swish! The Duke's cold red eye flashed with lethal intent. With a swift flick of his wrist, a razor-sharp shard of ice slices through the air at blinding speed. Stab! The ice blade pierces directly into the Viscount's magic circle, shattering his spell into dust and sending the hysterical noble collapsing to the floor in agony. Man, the Duke doesn't play around. Sigh. The Duke lets out a tired sigh, coldly commanding the guards to haul the trash away. Meanwhile, Gray gently fixes Emmy's ruffled clothes, while Emmy internally loses her mind in chibi panic, screaming for her mom to come pick her up. The palace guards waste no time pinning the defeated Viscount's arms and dragging him away like a criminal across the courtyard. But as he's being hauled off, a sinister, dark smirk creeps onto the Viscount's face. Internally, he's celebrating because getting arrested was his actual plan all along to trap the Duke. Talk about a sneak. Flap, flap. High above the drama, a mysterious bird with a cat tail flaps its purple wings, silently flying away into the cloudy sky. Tap, tap. Cut inside the opulent royal reception room, where the Duke elegantly sips his tea without a care in the world, while poor Emmy sits stiffly on the couch, sweating bullets from the awkward tension. Suddenly, the door glides open and Emperor Reynold walks in with his shirt aggressively unbuttoned, casually asking if he can call Emmy Little Emmy. Terrified, Emmy instantly tugs her dad's coat, hiding behind him like a tiny shield. Pressure. The Emperor's green eyes glow with a creepy magical crest as he looms over, demanding an answer with a fake polite smile. Emmy's entire body shivers under the suffocating pressure, knowing that one wrong word here could literally get her executed. Block! Just as the tension hits boiling point, a white-gloved hand reaches across and gently covers Emmy's eyes, blocking out the Emperor's terrifying glare. Chill. The Duke calmly takes another sip of his tea with one hand while shielding his daughter with the other, coldly telling the Emperor that before speaking to a young lady, he should put away the dart hidden in his hand. Emmy's eyes turn into pure stars. Her dad is officially the coolest guy alive. Just when you thought the Emperor was about to unleash a lethal strike, Reynolds slowly opens those glowing green eyes and casually admits that throwing a hidden dart at a child was pretty impolite of him. Talk about an understatement. With an insanely smooth smirk, the Emperor offers his sincerest apologies, playing off his murderous intent like it was just a little innocent prank. Seriously, this guy's fake politeness is top-tier villain energy. Next, we get a quick look at our adorable heroine, reminding everyone that while things look cute on the surface, the dark political games in this empire are getting crazier by the second. Reynolds doesn't stop there. He boldly asks Emmett if she'd prefer a formal apology or a warm hug in his broad arms. But before he can take a step, Duke Fyodor's sharp, icy voice cuts through the air, addressing the ruler by his first name with pure disrespect. Chill! The Duke gives Emperor Reynolds a single second to clear out and get the hell away from his daughter before things get ugly. The sheer aura radiating off her dad right now is enough to freeze the entire palace tower. Clack! Outside the reception room, Emmy and Gray stand by the giant double doors. Emmy clutches her burning cheeks in disbelief, internally fuming about how utterly frivolous and unhinged the ruler of this country actually is. Floating in her own mental breakdown, Emmy screams internally because Reynolds' personality is totally broken. In her original story outline, he was supposed to be a gentle, mysterious beauty, not a fake, malicious tyrant who secretly wants her dead. Sensing her sudden mood crash, young Gray glances over with his stunning heterochromatic eyes, quietly checking in to see if his lady is doing all right. Chibi mode! Emmy turns into a furious little potato, puffing out her cheeks in pure frustration as she realizes she can't even trust her own author knowledge anymore. She dramatically slumps her shoulders into feet while Gray sweats bullets, completely clueless about why his tiny master is suddenly acting like a dramatic villain herself. Dramatic shift. Meanwhile, inside the soundproof room, the conversation takes a terrifying turn. Duke Fyodor and Reynolds discuss how Emmy's soul and body interact, confirming that no matter how you look at it, the girl standing before them is still the exact same person. Outside, Emmy squints suspicious eyes at the massive wooden doors and asks Gray if his high-tier night senses can overhear what the two powerful men are talking about. Gray listens intently but politely admits the palace soundproofing is way too good. Leaning on her tiny hand, Emmy rests her chin in deep thought. Did she just mishear things earlier, or is there a massive secret plot unfolding right under her nose? Shiver. A sudden cold realization hits her. It was definitely not an illusion. The words she managed to catch through the door were deadly serious. Clenching her fists, Emmy stands nervously beside her bodyguard, trying to piece together the missing puzzle pieces of this world. Honestly, being transmigrated into your own story sounds great, until you realize you forgot half the plot. Back inside the dimly lit room, Duke Fyodor sits stiffly across from the Emperor as Reynold casually brings up the legendary prophecy left behind by Liliana. Flashback! The glowing cosmic vision reveals Liliana's dire words. Out of the two children, only one can survive. The prophecy explicitly warns that bringing little Emmy here guarantees one child will meet an extraordinarily tragic end. Reinhold mocks the Duke for being a heartless father, but Fyodor doesn't take the bait. His red eyes flash with pure frost as he demands to know what malicious tricks the Emperor pulled while he was away searching for a curse-breaking cure. Smirking under his breath, Reynold asks if the Duke really suspects him of harming the kid. Fyodor coldly replies that only a fool like Reynold would fuss over a fake with zero chance of survival anyway. The absolute savage burns in this conversation are unreal. Dun dun dun! The scene abruptly cuts to Emmy walking down the grand, echoing palace corridor. Her dramatic cape flows behind her as an ominous pressure fills the hallway. Emmy's eyes widen in sheer panic as she processes the hidden lore. The political secrets and curse details existing in this real world are infinitely deeper than the simplified webtoon panel she drew back on Earth. She suddenly stops in her tracks and turns to call Gray, but before the words can even leave her mouth, her instincts scream in total terror. Gasps! Gray instantly draws a sword and shoves Emmy behind his back, yelling for her to step back. Right outside the massive glass window looms a monstrous, shadow-covered creature, a terrifying beast that wasn't supposed to show up until the end of the webtoon. Coo! The giant mutated bird spirit presses its creepy, bloodshot eyes right against the glass panel, tilting its head with a disturbing curiosity as its gaze locks directly onto Emmy. Crash, shatter. The glass explodes inward in a million sharp shards. Gray instantly deploys a massive magical defense crest to block the flying debris, but a stray shard grazes his face as blood drips down his cheek. Talk about elite bodyguard responsiveness. With blood trickling down his jaw, Gray's dual-colored eyes ignite with lethal focus. He isn't letting a single feather touch his lady. Help! But it's already too late. Dark, shadowy fragments crumble beneath Emmy's feet as a void-like force begins devouring the stone floor right under her boots. Flashback shift. As darkness swallows the screen, we glimpse Duke Fyodor standing alone in the dead of night, staring out the window, tormented by sleepless nights and painful memories of the past. In his mind's eye, he remembers holding his beloved life Liliana, her long blue hair flowing around them like a tragic, beautiful dream that he can never touch again. Young Liliana gently holds a finger to her lips with a faint, sorrowful smile, hiding secrets that would eventually tear their family apart. Sobbing, rain pours down on a tragic scene as a tearful, bandaged Liliana weeps under a white veil, reaching out through the storm with broken hands. Man, the artist really knows how to hit us right in the feels with these tragic backstories. Dressed in pure white robes and holding vibrant blue lotus blossoms, Liliana stands illuminated like a divine goddess, the Duke's eternal lover, beauty, and wife. To give us a quick breather, here is the official map layout of the world. From the grand fairy tale towers of Duke Morwen's estate to the Eastern-inspired kingdom of Huayu, the world building here is absolutely stunning. Check out this official character relationship chart. It breaks down all the complex webs between the royal family, the Duke's faction, the sneaky Viscount, and our adorable transmigrated heroine Emmy. The webtoon assistant jumps in with a cute little chibi note explaining that this special encyclopedia chapter was created so readers can keep track of all the crazy plot developments. Reminding us of where it all started, comic artist Zhang Qinlin transmigrated into her own story, waking up inside of the destined villainess Emmy Morwen. Despite knowing her grim fate, Emmy has been growing, facing life-threatening dangers and uncovering deep conspiracies alongside an incredible cast of characters. The main author, Papercoon, chimed in too, hype-building that we've officially reached the story's very first major climax, the Capellian bird arc. Connecting all the clues, that mutated Capellian bird spirit mentioned on the bounty poster earlier wasn't a coincidence. It was intentionally sent to target Emmy at the palace. The creators leave a sweet message asking fans to comment their theories, promising more hidden lore cards and zero-spoiler Easter eggs at the end of future chapters. Back to the nightmare. We jump right back into the action. Grace spins around in sheer horror as pitch-black glitched void energy completely wraps around Emmy's body. Boom! A massive wave of dark magic explodes through the corridor. Gray reaches out frantically, but the blinding shadow smoke completely blasts him backward. As the dark smog slowly clears, Gray stumbles to his feet, staring in complete horror at the shattered, empty hallway. Emmy is completely gone. Clink. On the cold marble floor lies Emmy's shattered emerald ribbon broken into pieces. Gray drops to his knees, desperately calling out her name into the empty silence. Elegant artwork! Cut to a breathtaking visual panel featuring Emmy surrounded by her protective male leads, reminding us just how much everyone in this story is willing to risk to save her. Sinking deep within the dark dimensional abyss, Emmy floats weightlessly as glowing stars stream past her falling body, pulling her deeper down into the unknown void. Clutching her trembling hands to her chest, Emmy's teary eyes gaze into the endless darkness. She wonders if this is where her journey ends. Will she die here alone or somehow wake up back in her original modern life? Just as she prepares to give up and accept her doom, a soft, divine voice echoes through the dark cosmos, reassuring her that she will not die. Out of nowhere, a glowing white hand reaches through the void to catch her. Embrace, a glowing, ethereal spirit of Liliana, gently wraps her arms around Emmy in the starry abyss, holding her close and promising to always protect her, calling her Lynn, my Emmy. As light bursts through the darkness, Emmy feels a warm, maternal protection wrapping around her soul, setting the stage for an explosive next chapter that will change everything. Just when you think things couldn't get any wilder, a mysterious silver-haired beauty appears in a misty realm, whispering cryptic warnings to wake up before it's too late. Talk about an eerie wake-up call. Floating in this weird dreamscape, our girl tries to rub the sleep out of her eyes. She can barely keep her thoughts straight, but she realizes this figure looks suspiciously like the very villainess she created in her own webtoon. Back in the real world, Emmy is out cold while her panic-stricken companion clutches her tightly, desperately begging her to open her eyes before everything falls apart around them. Suddenly, a massive shadow looms over them as the giant mutated Capellian bird stares down with creepily glowing eyes, making it pretty clear that waking up won't save them from becoming bird food. Swoosh! Up in the sky, a stylish pink-haired youngster in traditional Huayu robes channels high-level elemental magic, chanting spatial array positions to pinpoint their location. Honestly, this kid's aura is straight out of a martial arts epic. Flutter, an origami crane encased in glowing magic runes, spins into action, instantly locking onto the target down below. Talk about elite tracking technology. Down in the dark void, Emmy's eyelids flutter open. She blinks in total confusion while her companion breathes a massive sigh of relief, though the danger is far from over. Cool! A dark, malicious energy swirls around them as Emma glances sideways, sensing the sheer scale of the bloodthirsty beast lurking in the dark. Crash! The terrifying mutated bird lets out a deafening shriek and lunges forward. The orange-haired girl screams in sheer terror, convinced they're about to meet a gruesome end right here. Whoosh! Smoke completely covers the battlefield, but as the dust clears, the giant bird tilts its head in confusion because a mysterious figure is standing right on top of its head like it's no big deal. Suddenly, Emmy's eyes turn icy as she smirks with absolute villain arrogance, mockingly addressing the beast as a pathetic experimental creature before preparing to end its life. Bind! Golden magic threads erupt around the giant bird, binding its wings tight. The orange-haired girl cheers in excitement, but just as Emmy prepares to deliver the final blow, she suddenly freezes mid-cast. Ring! An origami crane floats down through the darkness, chiming softly. Emmy's sinister expression instantly melts away as she casually remarks that someone is coming, before suddenly losing control of her body. Emmy faints dead away onto the floor. Her companion goes full chibi panic, screaming in despair as the magic bindings loosen and the monstrous bird prepares to tear them to shreds. Tremble! The giant bird looms over the helpless girls with furious red eyes, but just as it's about to strike, a calm, breezy voice echoes through the darkness, apologizing for arriving a bit late. Glow! Descending from the heavens with ultimate main character energy, the pink-haired kid lands gracefully, surrounded by glowing magical symbols. Now that is how you make an entrance. Shimmer! Floating elegantly above the ruined domain, this mysterious savior radiates pure power. Seriously, the artist went all out on the lighting effects for this scene.
Inside the Capillion bird's dark domain, Emmy groans as she regains consciousness, watching the pink-haired kid unleash a swirling vortex of magic against the giant beast. Thud! With one massive surge of power, the pink-haired kid slams the giant mutated bird directly into the ground, leaving it completely immobilized. Talk about absolute flex! Standing casually on the defeated beast, the young warrior turns back and urges them not to waste time on explanations, insisting they need to find the domain's exit immediately. Shock. Emmy looks up only to choke on her own breath. Piled up around the cavern are dozens of unconscious victims who got trapped in this nightmare realm. Talk about a creepy horror trope. Emmy's head spins as she tries to process everything. She got attacked by a late-game boss bird, saved by a kid, and trapped in a realm. And then it hits her. Wait. Pink hair and Hua-Yu magic? Gasp! Emmy internally loses her mind upon realizing this kid is Chen Chu-Yi, the actual original female lead of her webtoon. Forcing her panic aside, Emmy quickly takes charge and orders Chu-Yi to strike the bird's eyes to paralyze it. Slice! Without missing a beat, Q-E leaps into action, slicing through the creature's glowing eyes with surgical precision. The combat choreography here is super satisfying. Crash! The giant bird crashes back down, but Emmy knows this monster won't stay dead for long. As she desperately racks her brain for its weakness, a glowing spell array suddenly points right at her throat. Q-E presses the magical blade close, demanding to know how an unfamiliar noble lady knows her name. Emmy sweats bullets in chibi mode, unable to blurt out that she literally drew her into existence. Grab! Emmy grabs Chewy's wrist, yelling that normal physical attacks won't work on this regenerating bird, and that they need to pool their knowledge if they want to get out alive. Chewy listens intently as Emmy breaks down the lore. This bird absorbed corrupted dark energy, meaning only light element magic can truly neutralize it once and for all. But reality hits them like a brick wall. None of them possess light magic. And to make matters worse, they're trapped at a complete dead end inside the dark cavern. Q-E sighs in resignation, casually declaring that she'll just keep knocking the monster down every single time it tries to stand up. Talk about a brute force strategy. Emmy swoons over Chewy's cool attitude for a second before facepalming, knowing this endless stamina battle will just exhaust them until they get wiped out. Boom! Suddenly, a brilliant green gem fragment shimmers in the dark as a legendary black sword pierces through the ceiling. Gray drops down like a dark angel, declaring he's here to protect his young lady. Crash! The green gem glints as the massive sword strikes the beast with explosive force, blowing dark smoke across the cavern floor. Knee-deep in swirling shadow magic, Gray stands tall with his heterochromic eyes glowing with lethal intensity. Man, this bodyguard deserves a major raise. Dump! Seeing Gray arrive instantly drains all the tension from Emmy's body as her legs turn to jelly and she drops to her knees in pure relief, while Gray turns his attention back to the twitching bird. Seal. Disgusted by the persistent monster, Gray combines his master swordsmanship with high-tier magic arrays, casting an absolute sealing circle over the giant bird. Chewy is totally blown away by his dual skill set. With the beast officially sealed, Gray retracts his weapon and approaches Emmy, lowering his head to sincerely apologize for arriving late as he gently takes her hand. Gray holds up the corrupted green gem in his gloved hand, noting its strange dark aura. Chewy squints in curiosity, but Gray looks at Emmy and reveals that only she can commune with its soul. Emmy holds the glowing shard, and suddenly eerie voices cry out in her mind, calling for their mother. Gray confirms Emmy can hear the spirit's voice, while the sealed bird's eyes widen in shock. Swish! Gray steps forward with his blade drawn, warning the beast spirit to cooperate if it ever wants to find what it's searching for. Emmy gently cradles the gem, softly asking the spirit to tell her what happened. Flashback! The spirit reveals that neither the bird nor the gem is their true form. They were innocent humans transformed by dark magic. Months ago in Hua-Yu, a sweet little girl named Wan-Du played peacefully in a pavilion while her mother went to fetch something. Wan-Du waved goodbye to her mother with a bright smile, completely unaware that this innocent moment would be the very last time she'd ever see her mother's face. Talk about a total heartbreak warning. Out from the shadows emerged two sinister hooded dark mages. Approaching little Wan-Du with fake friendliness, one of them instantly unleashes a dark curse right into her eye. Darkness. Black mist wraps around the terrified child as she paralyzes, unable to scream or run while the evil sorcerers drag her away into the shadows. Moments later, the heartbroken mother returns to the empty pavilion, looking around in utter panic as wind blows through the deserted garden. Tears stream down the mother's face as she collapses in agony, desperately crying out into the void for her missing daughter. Man, this tragedy hits way too hard.
The painful memory lingers as little Wandu remembers being stolen away by those dark figures, crying internally for her mother to save her. Back in the past, the weeping mother reaches out with trembling hands, consumed by grief over her stolen child. Stunning artwork! A gorgeous teaser visual featuring Emmy wrapped in a divine bridal veil, surrounded by her loyal guardians, setting up the incredible battles and emotional reveals waiting in the next arc. The chapter wraps up on this dramatic climax, leaving us on the edge of our seats as Emmy prepares to uncover the dark conspiracies driving these tragic transformations.
Talk about a nightmare origin story! Imagine a mother's grief turning so terrifyingly intense that her soul literally mutates into a ghostly bird roaming the abyss just to search for her lost kid. But wait, this isn't just any regular nightmare creature. It's a Capellian bird born strictly from pure, unfiltered despair.
Floating through empty memories, this ghostly creature peers at random innocent kids playing under cherry blossoms, desperately checking each face only to realize with overwhelming heartache that none of them are her precious child Wandu. But here's the dirty secret behind this tragedy. Those evil hooded cultists orchestrated the whole thing. They captured the heartbroken mother bird and slammed a glowing syringe packed with corrupted dark magic directly into her neck. Talk about completely unhinged evil. Crackle! Purple lightning surges through the poor bird as the sinister cultist smirks, openly gloating about turning a grieving parent into his ultimate brainwash weapon of destruction. Man, these villains really have zero chill. Back in the present, the glowing green gem spirit sobs hysterically over her mother's tragic twist, but Emmy calls her out hard, reminding her that having a tragic backstory doesn't give anyone a free pass to drag innocent people into danger. Roar! Blinded by corrupted rage, the giant monstrous bird lets out an ear-splitting shriek, charging full speed through the dark void to obliterate everything in its path. Emmy clutches her chest in pure panic, realizing they're totally screwed without a light element magic user. She internally panics. Even if she transmigrated from another world, she can't just stand by and watch everyone around her get slaughtered. Boom! Suddenly, a blinding flash of divine light shatters the darkness as an ethereal voice echoes out, asking if they need a little high-level assistance. Cue the dramatic entrance. Floating down like a literal saint, a mysterious blindfolded nun enveloped in massive golden magic circles appears. She casually looks down at the chaos, asking if Emmy wants her to purify the monster or just straight up delete it from existence. Talk about ultimate flex. Freeze! Before the divine nun can do anything, the little child spirit panics, stretching out her hands and screaming not to hurt her mom, while Emmy's eyes widen in sheer shock. Honestly, the emotional roller coaster in this panel is insane. Swoosh! Out of nowhere, Grace swoops in behind Emmy, softly asking for forgiveness for his physical touch, while the magical atmosphere reaches absolute peak intensity. Standing right behind Emmy, Gray gently guides her arms forward to align with his own, while the mysterious nun begins chanting ancient holy incantations. Talk about top-tier battle chemistry. Glow. Pure golden light and deep shadowy magic blend together at Emmy's fingertips. Even Chewie watches from afar in absolute disbelief, unable to process how this impossible spell is actually taking shape. The blindfolded nun takes a moment to break down the sheer absurdity of what's happening. Emmy and Gray are literally combining the purest form of light magic with current purest dark magic, creating a legendary flawless purification array. Wallop! But just as the purification peaks, a wave of corrupted child souls erupts from the darkness. Chewie quickly casts a radiant green barrier to block the wailing spirits from interfering. Claw! Dozens of tragic child spirits slam against the barrier, screaming in pure agony and envy, begging to be saved while demanding to know why a monster gets purified instead of them. Shield! Qiui and Benny put every ounce of their remaining mana into holding up the green magic wall, teeth gritted as malicious, shadowy tendrils crash against their defenses. Divine holy runes spin violently in the air as the blindfolded nun channels the final stage of her purification incantation, ordering everyone to hold their positions for just a few more seconds. The pressure on the magical barrier reaches breaking point as Benny screams at the top of her lungs, desperately telling them to hurry up before they all get swallowed alive.
Flash! Ignoring the chaos, the nun stays cool as ice, completing the intricate holy spell matrix with absolute precision. The art design on these magic circles is seriously top tier. Hug! The giant monstrous bird completely dissolves into warm heavenly light, transforming back into the gentle human mother who instantly catches little Wandu in a tearful, emotional embrace. Now that is how you deliver a satisfying resolution. Whoosh! Radiant beams of light shoot across the entire dark realm, gently enveloping every single trapped child spirit and ascending them toward peace. Emmy stands frozen in awe as she watches the spirits float away, whispering in relief that the nightmare is finally over, while leaning weakly against Gray. Cough! Suddenly, Emmy violently vomits dark blood. Her body trembles as severe magical backlash hits her like a freight train, painting the panel in terrifying crimson splatters. Emmy panics, shouting for the guards to carry Emmy away immediately before the lingering dark energy completely destroys her frail body. Pale and gasping for air, Emmy looks back with trembling eyes, softly asking Benny why she isn't coming along with them. Benny lowers her head with a sad, gentle smile, quietly admitting that her time has run out and that she can't leave this realm. Lying peacefully amidst the glowing spirit light, Benny accepts her fate, revealing that she belongs with the lost souls in this domain. Man, the writer really loves tearing our hearts out. Shimmer! Benny's body slowly turns into sparkling particles of light as she bids a final bittersweet farewell, expressing how glad she was to spend time with Emmy even if they couldn't stay friends forever. Cut to a dimly lit room behind iron bars. A handsome, brown-haired noble sits casually in an armchair, holding a glowing crystal orb while smirking about his brilliant trap coming together perfectly. Looking through his glass orb, the villain villainously boasts about clearing all suspicion off himself, but using poor Benny and the Viscount as desperate, disposable experimental subjects. What an absolute snake! Flashback diagrams reveal his twisted plan: distract the royal guards by staging an attack on the princess, then to use dark teleportation monsters to kidnap her right from the palace corridors. Staring sinisterly into the crystal ball, the mastermind chuckles softly, completely unbothered by who lives or dies as long as his grand conspiracy succeeds in the end. Meanwhile, back in the light realm, the wholly blindfolded nun unveils her true sinister thoughts, complaining about her restrictive bandages while secretly gloating that being near Emmy lets her drain her precious life force. Talk about trust issues. Gray holds the limp, unconscious Emmy safely in his arms, politely thanking the blindfolded nun for her help, completely unaware that he's thanking the very parasite draining his lady's life. The fake nun smirks under her veil, lightly tapping her lips with a bandaged finger. Seriously, this girl needs to be put in her place ASAP. Void? Deep inside her unconscious mind, Emmy confronts her original modern identity as teacher Chin Lin, clutching her head in distress as surrounding voices call out her real name. Gasp! Emmy snaps awake in a lavish, sunlit bedroom, gasping for breath while gripping the bedsheets, completely thrown off by being addressed as Lady Amy Mervon again. Sitting up in her cozy bed, Emmy blinks in confusion, spotting her faithful maid asleep in a chair nearby with a cute little bird perched right on her shoulder. Chirp! The little bird chirps loudly, waking up the maid, who instantly gasps in pure shock upon seeing Emmy awake and sitting up. Scream! The maid jumps up like a rocket and yells at the top of her lungs down the hallway, alerting the whole mansion. Emmy squints in chibi mode, internally complaining about the deafening volume. A quick narrative panel catches us up on the aftermath. Emi was out cold for a full week, Chiui headed back home, and the entire estate has been in total lockdown trying to treat Emi's mystery illness. The handsome blonde doctor finishes his examination, reassuring the worried young noble boy that Emmy just needs plenty of rest, while her little brother leans in asking if she feels any pain. Emmy silently holds a steaming mug of tea, looking around at her exhausted caretakers and feeling a heavy wave of guilt for worrying everyone so much. Looking down into the tea reflection, Emmy sees her former teacher self with glasses, struggling to digest how genuine warmth and affection from this world are slowly changing her cold mindset. Emmy's thoughts drift back to Benny's tragic sacrifice, spiraling into self-doubt as she blames herself for being powerless to save her friend. Noticing Emmy's gloomy expression and heavy silence, her younger brother grows visibly anxious, his eyes trembling as he tries to figure out how to comfort her. Shout! Unable to take the heavy silence anymore, her brother suddenly blurts out her name at full volume, startling the entire room.
The entire room freezes. The doctor, maid, and Emmy all stare at the little guy in utter silence while he stands there red-faced, sweating bullets over his awkward outburst. Frantically waving his hands around, her brother stammers out an offer to take her outside for a change of scenery, while Emmy stares at him in realization, remembering his key role in her original webtoon plot. Imagine getting framed for a massive international war crime right after finishing what was supposed to be a routine ghost-busting mission. Overlooking the sunlit rooftops of Capel, pink-haired prodigy Chen Yi-chu casually reports into his magical paper crane, only to realize he's been dropped right into the middle of a grand political setup. Gasp! Close up on Yi-Q as he breaks down the situation. Someone deliberately unleashed Crescent Peak monsters on innocent citizens to spark a war, leaving subtle third-party traces behind. Talk about a classic villain false flag operation. While busy blabbering into his communication crane about high-stakes diplomacy, Yi-Q literally bumps headfirst into a mysterious guy wearing high-class aristocratic robes. Yi-Qiu casually offers a quick apology, but as his eyes lock onto those shimmering golden locks, piercing purple eyes, and official royal crest, his brain completely short-circuits. Seriously, the artist's facial lighting here is top tier. Boom! Revealed the second prince of Capel himself, Miles Capel. Meanwhile, Yi-Qiu turns into a screaming chibi panic ball in the corner. Running into the Empire's ultimate golden boy on a random street corner is peak bad luck. Back at the estate, Emmy quietly sips her hot tea, feeling a surge of warmth wash over her as she looks around at her exhausted caretakers. After being surrounded by cold betrayal, feeling genuine affection hit her this hard is almost overwhelming. Leaning in with an eager grin, her younger brother Elian suggests taking her out for a change of scenery to meet their returning cousin. And Eliana's eyes widen as she realizes her cousin is the actual male lead of this webtoon world. A dramatic graphic panel showcases Prince Miles Capel standing tall behind Shan Chu-yi, officially setting the stage for the main character's big entrance. Shine! The webtoon drops a legendary lore card. Prince Miles is the first genius in history to blend mechanical technology with magical Mura, creating state-of-the-art gear for both civilians and the military. Dressed in full imperial royal attire, holding a gilded blade over the crown, Miles isn't just a handsome face, he's the most popular, promising heir to the throne. Honestly, why are webtoon male leads always overpowered overachievers? Leave some talents for the rest of us. Elian gently tilts his head, asking Emmy what she thinks about going out to catch up with their cousin. Emmy mentally plans to decline because babysitting the webtoon's main character sounds like a headache, but Elian instantly hits her with the ultimate puppy dog eyes. Gulp. Elian turns up the sparkling cuteness to maximum overdrive. Emma's iron willpower completely shatters under the pressure. Seriously, weaponizing adorable brotherly energy like this should be classified as a war crime. Totally defeated by cuteness, Emmy surrenders and agrees to follow his plan. Elian immediately turns to maid Diane and Dr. Carno, happily ordering them to prep Emmy for a shopping trip. Echo! Emma's chibi face explodes in utter shock. Didn't he say in a few days? Meanwhile, outside the window, Elian's cheerful vibe vanishes as he gazes pensively at the horizon with his little songbird. Deep inside his head, Elian reflects on Emmy's fragile state. To him, the old Amy was an empty puppet, but this current Amy is like a delicate candle flame flickering in the harsh wind, ready to die out at any moment. He realizes that if he hadn't interrupted her dark, guilt-ridden thoughts, she might have completely spiraled into the void. His little bird chirps softly, as if agreeing that being a protective brother is tough work. Staring down at the burning candles, Elian silently vows to guard his little sister no matter what. Cut to the next episode preview text. Man, the brotherly devotion in this chapter is giving me major wholesome vibes. Rewind back to the bustling street. Yi-Qiu is still blabbering into his paper crane about noble politics, totally unaware of who he just bumped into. Miles Capel gazes down with a suave, gentle smile, offering a hand and asking if the little guy got hurt from the collision. Still oblivious, Yi-Qiu keeps shouting into the paper crane, wondering why his superior on the other end suddenly went dead silent. Whisper? Realizing the literal crown prince is staring at him, Yi-Qiu frantically whispers into the crane to warn his boss, only for his supervisor to instantly pull a good luck hanging up and cut the line. Talk about peak workplace betrayal. Beep! The magical crane goes offline, and Miles suddenly materializes right behind Yi-Qiu's shoulder with an amused smirk, sending the poor kid into a blood-curdling screech. Step, step! Later that night, under the soft streetlights, Elian and Emmy walk hand in hand in matching gothic chic outfits, enjoying a cozy evening walk through the town square. Elian's sharp blue eyes suddenly lock onto a familiar silhouette waiting in the distance, instantly shifting the atmospheric mood. Wave! Out pops Prince Miles Capel with a cheerful greeting. Elion and Emmy both freeze in hilarious chibi disbelief. What are the odds of running into the male lead on a random night walk? A hilarious four-way intro panel pops up. Male lead Miles Capel, female lead Chen Qiu Yi, final villain Amy, and scapegoat Elion. Now, this is what I call an absolute disaster lineup waiting to happen. Clack! Cut to a top-down view of all four kids sitting around a cozy coffee shop table, intensely laying out cards for a board game. Holding their card hands, Elion and Emmy look completely lost, internally screaming about why a tense diplomatic encounter turned into a casual game night at a cafe. Elion smirks with proud siscon thoughts, assuming Emmy is thrilled to play with kids her age, while Miles blushes with joy because he finally found card buddies after months of solo training. The sheer gap between their expectations is gold. Holding his cards up, Miles smoothly praises the impressive long-range tech of Crescent Peak's communication cranes, subtly trying to dig for state secrets. Miles breaks down the tech specs, noting that Capel's communication crystals are way too expensive and energy-draining in comparison. Yiqiu acts totally clueless behind his hand, claiming he's just a simple citizen, while Chibi Elion and Emmy sweat bullets listening to two secret prodigy inventors flex their genius credentials over a casual card game. Glare! Miles' purple eye narrows as his playful smile sharpens into something far more calculating. Leaning directly across the table, Miles drops the playful act and casually calls out Yiqiu's real name and guild title. Dramatic shadow. Massive dark silhouettes loom over the table as Miles and Yiqiu lock eyes in an intense mental chess match, while Chibi Emmy sits trapped right in the middle, holding her cards in complete horror. The tension drops to absolute zero as Miles repeats Yiqiu's name, proving he saw right through his cover from the very second they met on the street. Miles casually lists off all of Yiqiu's secret titles, showing off the flawless reach of the Royal Intelligence Network. Sparks practically fly between the two boy geniuses as they stare each other down across the table. Internally, Yiqiu spirals into panic, trying to figure out whether his identity leaked during the monster attack or the moment he stepped foot in the capital. Flick! Quick on his feet, Yiqiu hides behind his fan of cards with a smug smile, playfully asking if the prince has a secret crush on him to be tracking his every move. Now that is high-tier banter. Behind his calm front, Yiqiu mentally notes the nightmare political crisis brewing if the monster casualties get blamed on his homeland. Unfazed by the deflection, Miles fans out his numbered cards with a dashing smile, asking if they can take their relationship a step closer. Emmy literally spits her tea right across the table. Alien panics while Miles smoothly turns his attention to Emmy, asking how her recovery's been going. Clack! Setting his cards down, Miles drops the playful tone, pointing out that everyone at this table was directly pulled into a suspiciously clean setup. As Yiqiu ponders who truly pulled the strings, Emmy's modern transmigrator brain starts piecing things together. The plot is diverging way too fast from the original webtoon. Shatter. Memories fracture in Emmy's mind as the terrifying realization hits her. The true target of that corrupted dark magic attack wasn't just random people, but the blindfolded nun and Emmy herself. Looking directly at Miles, Emmy drops a bomb, asking if the royal family hides a girl wrapped in bandages who dresses like a holy nun. Silence. The lively cafe atmosphere vanishes into cold dread. Miles' cheerful expression turns completely dark as he quietly apologizes, admitting he can't answer that question. Talk about confirmation without saying a word. To break the suffocating silence, Elion asks his cousin about his upcoming schedule, leading Miles to smirk and invite them all to a grand royal ball where enemy diplomats are attending. Buckle up, folks, because we're walking straight into the enemy's trap. Just when Chen Qiu Yi thinks he's got the whole political game figured out, he realizes Weyburn, that shady nation worshipping a fake deity, is pulling the strings from behind the scenes. And now he's got to figure out if running into this mysterious girl was part of their crazy plan all along. Tick-tock! The giant glowing gears of fate start spinning out of control, giving everyone that eerie feeling that their quiet, predictable life is about to get smashed into a million pieces. Over at the Belde residence, news drops that an official invitation to the Grand Royal Ball has arrived, and you just know whenever nobles host a fancy party, absolute chaos is about to follow. Prince Miles smoothly flashes his signature charming smile, casually dropping the news that diplomats from their enemy nation Weyburn are attending the palace ball in 2 days. Honestly, this guy invites danger like it's his personal hobby. Crack! The mysterious clockwork mechanism shatters further into the dark void, signaling that time is running out before the impending disaster strikes. Under the chilly night sky, Emmy leans against the cold balcony railing, spiraling into a deep existential crisis about who she really is and why a former gloomy artist like her ended up trapped in this wild fantasy world. Swoosh! Feathered masks and dramatic memories float around her mind as she reflects on how her calm, normal life got completely hijacked by one insane webtoon plot twist after another. Staring into the darkness, Emmy's eyes heavy with exhaustion, she internally vents about how incredibly annoying and troublesome this whole transmigration nightmare is, especially being totally powerless to stop it. Glimmer, an incredible hourglass graphic panel shows her original modern self trapped inside the glass, while her fantasy villainous persona rests upside down surrounded by crimson flowers. Man, the symbolism in this artist's work is seriously top tier. Sparkle! Suddenly, a glowing golden aura manifests out of thin air, and a playful voice chirps out to warn Emmy that overthinking will make her lose her hair. Now that's one way to ruin a dramatic moment. Resting her head on her hand with a mischievous smirk, the ghostly white-haired girl promises to speak nothing but the absolute truth if Emmy just asks her what's going on. Emmy turns into a confused chibi ball, totally baffled by this ethereal girl who looks like a literal angel but talks like a total tease. Locking eyes with the glowing spectral figure, Emma's breath hitches as she slowly begins to recognize those otherworldly features. Gasped. Under the full moon's glow, Emmy tentatively whispers the name of the original villainess, Amy Morven. The ghostly figure goes dead silent for a brief second, her glowing blue eyes staring back with an unreadable, subtle expression. Shock! The entity drops a massive truth bomb, revealing that while she was the Amy in the original webtoon, the true, authentic Amy Morven standing here right now is actually Emmy herself. Talk about a brain-melting lore drop. Leaning in close under the moonlight, the ghost calls Emmy by her real modern name, Zong Chin-lin. Seeing both versions of the character face to face in this lighting is honestly chilling. Chain snap! The ghost breaks it down completely. Zong Chin-lin is actually the direct reincarnation of Amy, meaning they were the exact same soul all along. Emmy's brain completely short-circuits in panic. She internally screams about how ridiculous it sounds that her real life was just a cosmic loop back into a webtoon world. Grasping her own shoulders in distress, Emmy questions the fairness of it all. If she really is Amy, does that mean her entire human life as Zhang Chen-lin was just a meaningless, disposable throwaway? Gentle touch. The spectral Amy softly cradles Emmy's face under the glowing moon, gently urging her to look up and stop clinging to a past script that no longer applies. With a final radiant glow, the ghost tells Emmy to go rewrite the story and search for her own true ending before fading away into the starlit night sky. Clink! Cut straight to the Grand Royal Banquet Hall, where sparkling chandeliers, luxury wine glasses, and lavish flower arrangements set the stage for high society intrigue. Fanfare! The herald's voice echoes through the massive ballroom, officially announcing the grand arrival of Duke Fennel Morven and his daughter, Lady Amy Morven. Strutting into the spotlight, Emmy looks absolutely stunning in a high-class gothic chic navy dress. But of course, the overwhelming stares from the snobbish crowd immediately make her feel super uncomfortable. Next up, the announcer calls out Benny Belday, who steps forward as the acting Viscount of the Belday family with a surprisingly formal attire. Looking like a total gothic queen, Emmy sighs softly to herself, wishing her overprotective brother Elian didn't have to handle urgent business before joining them. Boom! A gorgeous promotional splash page showcases our main cast in dramatic bridal attire. Honestly, why does every fantasy manhwa insert these breathtaking artwork cards right in the middle of a high-stakes arc? Not that I'm complaining. Sparkle! Benny's eyes literally light up like stars the second he catches sight of Emmy standing in the middle of the ballroom floor. Dramatic reunion, Benny dramatic cries about being alive, expecting Emmy to run into his arms with tears of joy, while Duke Fennel stares him down like a giant protective wall of pure intimidation. Cupid's arrow! Benny gets hit with an imaginary love arrow, completely delusional that Emmy calling him a friend means she's secretly head over heels for him. Bro is suffering from ultimate main character syndrome. Duke Fennel narrows his cold red eyes, internally judging the Belday family for letting such a silly kid handle official territory affairs after the previous Viscount got suspended.
Shine! Prince Miles makes his grand entrance alongside a breathtaking pink-haired beauty, sending the surrounding noble ladies into an absolute frenzy over the visual overload. Meanwhile, Chibi Emmy is sweating bullets from all the intense attention.
Flowers everywhere. Miles smoothly introduces his elegant partner, Chen Chu-yi from Crescent Peak, who puts on the ultimate innocent act wrapped in a bouquet of purple roses.
Dropping the social pleasantries, Miles whispers to Duke Fennell that the Emperor requests an urgent private audience regarding high-level state affairs.
Dark tension. Miles and the Duke exchange deadly glances, secretly discussing the alarming news that the tainted ambassador arrived and the holy goddess might have actually been captured by the enemy. Gulp. Feeling the Duke's hidden aura of pure killing intent behind his polite smile, Chibi Emmy and Benny freeze up in total horror. Seriously, protective dad mode on a high-tier Duke is terrifying.
As the Emperor and Duke head off to their secret meeting, Duke Fennell pats Benny on the head, assigning the poor kid to act as Emma's personal bodyguard while they're gone.
Swish! Over on the polished dance floor, Prince Miles and Chen Qiuyi gracefully glide across the room like a picture-perfect royal couple, turning every single head in the building. Sparkle, sparkle. Wanting to distract herself, Emmy casually asks Benny what happened during his monster captivity, causing Benny's eyes to burst into literal stars because his crush actually paid attention to him. Benny launches into a hilarious chibi breakdown, detailing how he got locked up, starved to the point of passing out, and was dramatically rescued by Chen Qiuyi's secret techniques. Crackle! Hearing that he's safe and sound, Emmy offers a rare, heartwarming smile, sending Benny into an absolute fanboy meltdown where he vows to carry this precious memory straight to his grave. Creepy vibes. Suddenly, a tall, pale figure draped in a dark hooded cloak glides up, introducing himself as Ambassador Valse de Chevy from Weyburn. Emmy's eyes widen in instant terror as the room's temperature plunges to sub-zero. Flinch! The sinister ambassador smirks under his dark hood, extending a cold greeting that instantly sends shivers down Amos's spine. Music swirls. The upbeat ballroom orchestra keeps playing vibrant waltzes as noble couples twirl under the crystal chandeliers, completely oblivious to the dark conspiracy unfolding in the shadows. Mid-dance twirl, Qiuqi leans in close to Miles, subtle warning him not to get too lost in the fake romantic mood and lose focus on their actual espionage mission. Miles smoothly spins her around, whispering back to play along with the party vibe, while pointing out that the Verban Kingdom envoys are lurking right at 3 o'clock. Tucked away in the dark corner of the grand hall, 3 hooded figures whisper sinister plans amongst themselves, plotting their next sneaky maneuver. Keeping his sharp purple eyes fixed on the target, Miles notices one envoy creeping directly toward Emmy, while another makes a break for the main exit. Action time. With a subtle glance and unspoken understanding, Qiuyi dashes off to track the fleeing spy, while Miles heads straight over to rescue Emmy from the enemy's trap. What an absolute cliffhanger! Polite pleasantries wrap up on the dance floor, but beneath those fake smiles, the real nightmare is just getting started. Step, a shadowy figure draped in a dark hooded cloak steps forward, introducing himself as Ambassador Dasabi from the Verban Kingdom. Talk about giving off immediate villain vibes. Lore drop time. The Verban Kingdom used to rule with an iron fist before being overthrown, but now they've been lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to snatch back the throne. Emmy's brain immediately goes into overdrive. Why on earth is the literal final boss of her original webtoon story standing right in front of her with that creepy smirk? Thud. Without warning, Dasabi drops directly onto one knee, sending a shockwave of confusion through Emmy and Benny. Man, this guy really knows how to cause a scene in public. Dasabi screams at the top of his lungs that Emmy is their legendary dark attribute saintess sent to restore Verban's glory, while Benny furiously yells back that he's completely out of his mind. Gasp! The entire ballroom goes dead silent as dozens of critical noble eyes lock onto Emmy. Talk about the ultimate social media cancellation in medieval times. Pressure surges. The air grows heavy with malice as Emmy realizes one single slip-up right now will bring absolute ruin to the Morven family. Crack! Chains of dark fate shatter across her mind as Emmy vows that no matter what happens, she has to protect herself without making a single mistake. Just when the tension reaches maximum heat, a sharp voice cuts through the crowd, calling out the foreign envoy for throwing his weight around like he owns the place. A stunning noble lady steps in front of Emmy, scoffing that Kapir isn't some playground where creepy diplomats can harass young noble girls. Honestly, give this queen a crown. Dasabi just chuckles wickedly, arguing that since Kapir despises dark attribute users anyway, handing Emmy over to Verbin is a total win-win situation for everyone. Twist! The creepy ambassador flexes his tattooed hands, weaving dark psychological mind games right in front of the entire crowd. He keeps pushing his manipulative snake speech, trying to convince the surrounding aristocrats that Emmy is a dangerous monster who belongs in the dark. Swoosh! A purple-haired noblewoman pulls Emmy into a protective hug, completely shutting down Dasabi's petty manipulation with pure grace. Roses bloom! Surrounding Emmy with warmth, the noble lady firmly declares that no matter what attribute she holds, Emmy is family to the Kapir Empire. Now that's how you handle a bully. Snap! Dasabi mocks their heartwarming unity before raising his hand and snapping his pale fingers with a chilling smirk. Crackle! The ambient reality literally breaks apart like glass as dark domain magic shatters the ballroom environment. Void shift. In the blink of an eye, Emmy is ripped away from the crowd and isolated inside a void black dimension with the creepy ambassador looming right over her. Dasabi boasts about how effortless it is to trap her, promising that her dark Marat potential can unleash unimaginable cosmic destruction if she just joins him. Little does he know, Emmy keeps her composure and secretly activates a recording mana orb behind her back. Modern problems require modern genius solutions. Dasabi taunts her bravado, dropping terrifying intel that time is totally frozen in this dark domain for everyone except the legendary user of light, Marat. Emmy connects the dots. His true targets were her and the light magic girl all along. But Dasabi insists he's only here to protect his precious Saintess. Shatter! Suddenly the dark barrier gets smashed into a million glittering shards from the outside world. Swish! Sinister, shadowy chains whip out and viciously attack the noble lady who stood up for Emmy, leaving Emmy completely paralyzed in sheer terror. Seeing the protective lady collapse, the surrounding crowd loses their minds as panic spreads across the grand hall. Guards! Noble ladies scream at the top of their lungs to subdue the unhinged Verbin ambassador before he kills someone. Kneeling beside her fallen defender, Emmy realizes the horrific truth. Dasabi intentionally released her just to hurt the people trying to protect her. Boom! Pure, unadulterated rage explodes from deep within Emmy's soul. Her silver hair transforms into midnight black, and her blue eyes ignite with blood-red vengeance. Rumble! Dasabi just stands there grinning like a lunatic as black miasma swirls around him, casually asking for her last words. Glow. The dark magic circle blazes with demonic aura as Emmy stands transformed, the ultimate dark vessel fully awakened in all her terrifying glory. Dasabi goes wild with ecstasy over her beautiful, overflowing power, but Emmy just stares through his soul and coldly commands him to shut his mouth. Feel the anger, feel the hatred, Dasabi laughs hysterically, feeding on her emotional turmoil to break the vessel's seal completely. Benny screams out in terror from the sidelines, realizing Emmy has completely lost control to her overwhelming dark instincts. Clang! Panicking royal guards draw their swords and warn Emmy not to take another step, but her aura is far too monstrous for them to approach. Standing in a silent, deadly trance, black-haired Emmy looks like a literal god of destruction ready to wipe the ballroom off the map. Raising her hand into the air, she whispers, "Shall we end this?" as complex magic circles ignite beneath her feet. Flash! Right before total catastrophe hits, a gentle, gloved hand reaches out through the swirling dark energy. Warm embrace? Her protective brother wraps his arms around her from behind, gently covering her eyes while whispering for her not to look and not to be scared. Man, the wholesome sibling dynamic in this webtoon always hits right in the feels. Emmy's consciousness flickers through different identities, the dark vessel, Lady Emmy Morven, and her original modern life as Zong Chinlin. A beautiful fantasy portrait reveals the modern family structure that shaped her past soul before all the transmigration drama began. Flashback time! When Zhang Qinlin first woke up in the modern world as a child, she was shivering alone in a snowy alley with zero memories of her past. Chill. Wandering through freezing city streets like a forgotten ghost, cold and hunger slowly devoured her tiny body. Collapsing into the deep snow, the poor girl closed her eyes, wondering if her quiet breath would just be covered by the winter blizzard forever. Sparkle! Just as her consciousness faded, a warm golden ray of light pierced through the freezing darkness. Instead of death's cold embrace, she woke up wrapped in the loving arms of a gentle young couple who rescued her from the storm. grasp. Tiny Zhang Qinlin desperately clutched onto their warm hands, refusing to let go of this newfound ray of hope.
The kind couple adopted her as their own daughter, giving her a real home, a bright smile, and the name Zhang Qinlin.
Even though she secretly knew she didn't belong in that modern identity, she happily played the role because she craved their love more than anything in the world. Crash! The glass spills as the flashback concludes. Her original misfortune was supposed to end her, but Zhang Qinlin's endless loop of destiny was only just beginning. What an absolute masterpiece of an episode!
Cough, cough. Imagine taking one single sip of mango juice and immediately feeling your throat close up as your whole life flashes before your eyes. Talk about an absolute nightmare starting off what was supposed to be a normal day.
Her eyes fill with tears as she desperately covers her mouth, while her adoptive mom panics in total disbelief, suddenly realizing that her daughter is severely allergic to mangoes.
Thump thump, hearts are pounding in total panic as the heartbreaking truth hits. This girl isn't the real daughter at all, and the grieving mom breaks down in tears right in front of her.
Realizing that revealing her secret would completely destroy this fragile family dream, she makes the cold decision to lie right to their faces just to keep the delusion alive. Honestly, the psychological trauma in this story is already off the charts.
Soothing glow, they embrace tightly under the sanctuary's stained glass windows, clinging to each other like drowning survivors holding onto a piece of ice. Talk about a heavy emotional scene.
Beneath the holy statue, both of them seek a false sense of salvation, choosing to believe in comforting lies rather than facing the brutal reality.
Whisper. Dark voices echo through her mind, brutally reminding her that she's nothing more than an inferior replacement for a child who chose to leave this world behind.
But instead of breaking down, she just quietly accepts it with a cold look in her eyes. She already knows she's just a stand-in. Scratch! Cruel bullies cover her school desk with horrific death threats and hateful slurs, making her school life an absolute living hell. Man, manhwa bullies really have zero chill.
Splash! Submerged in an ocean of emotional pain and surrounded by phantom goldfish, she feels like red strings of fate are slowly suffocating her soul.
The tragic memories squeeze tighter and tighter around her neck as she suffers in total isolation, desperate for even a single drop of genuine affection. Blinding light, blinding headlights pierce through the darkness as a speeding car rushes straight toward her, setting up what looks like the ultimate tragic exit. Snap! The metaphorical threads holding her painful dream together are finally cut, severing her connection to that agonizing past life once and for all.
Stunning artwork! Check out this gorgeous promotional artwork illustrating the deep bonds and dark destinies surrounding our main characters. The visual contrast here is pure eye candy.
Waking up in a sterile hospital room wrapped in head bandages, she finds her adoptive mother sitting quietly beside her bed. The heavy silence in this room is almost deafening.
Her adoptive mom tearfully tells her that she doesn't have to act anymore, confessing that she knows she isn't her real daughter. Shatter. As the IV drips steadily, those words shatter her remaining hope, officially freeing her from playing the substitute role, but leaving her completely hollow inside. Left all alone in the dark hospital room at night, tears stream down her face beneath her bandages as the harsh reality of abandonment sets in. Beep! She checks her phone, only to find a cold text message from her adoptive dad telling her they're leaving for 2 months and just dumping allowance money into her account. Wow, top-tier parenting right there. Sunset glow. Sitting alone on a high table against the window, she realizes she never wanted cold freedom. She just wanted to be trapped in a cage called love.
She lets out a soft, bittersweet laugh with a faint smirk. You gotta admit, her tragic resilience is equal parts heartbreaking and badass.
Whoosh! High up on a skyscraper rooftop under the golden sunset sky, the cold wind whips through her hair as she looks out over the endless city lines.
Sit? She casually perches right on top of the narrow railing with nowhere left to run, questioning if there's even any reason left for her existence.
A flock of dark crows swoops past the dizzying drop beneath her feet, mirroring her temptation to just let go and take flight into the void.
Chills! Given a peaceful, breathtaking smile to the sky, she decides she might as well give ultimate freedom a shot right here and now. Lean! She tilts forward over the edge into midair, but right before catastrophe strikes, a dramatic hand reaches out and grabs her wrist in the nick of time. Talk about insane clutch timing. A chaotic purple-haired guy pulls her back up with all his strength, screaming that life is meant to be lived stubbornly, and then randomly asks if she wants to help him draw webtoons instead. Classic manhwa author logic right here. Looking back at the glowing city buildings at dusk, she gives a quiet agreement, taking a wild leap of faith into a completely unexpected new life. Work mode. Cut to an adorable chibi montage of her working alongside her savior, going from a complete rookie assistant all the way to a main artist assistant. She buries herself in mountains of published comic volumes, using the frantic, non-stop deadline lifestyle to keep her dark thoughts completely at bay. Her chaotic webtoon mentor scolds her with tough love, aggressively lecturing her that people need to live for themselves and strive for what they actually want. Honestly, this guy deserves a Best Mentor award. Adjust glasses. She softly apologizes and pushes up her round glasses, silently realizing that she still doesn't quite understand how to live for herself. Hello. Dimensional magic circles ignite as her perception shifts, transitioning her soul back into the dark fantasy realm where her past and present identities collide. Flashback fragments swirl around her mind, remembering every single person who gave her a glimmer of warmth when she had completely given up on the world. Web of Destiny! Glowing threads of fate connect all her precious bonds, from her teacher on the roof to Eli's presence, Gray's protection, and Penny's friendship. The visual storytelling in this panel is absolute peak. These warm memories act like a glowing spiderweb catching her as she falls, convincing her that her life actually holds meaning for the people around her. Crackle! Watching the noble lady get brutally bound and crushed by dark domain miasma, a surge of righteous indignation explodes inside Emmy. Glare. Her eyes ignite with blood-red resolve. She admits she might not be a saint, but she refuses to stand by while the people who protected her get slaughtered. Transformation! Fully awakened into her black-haired dark vessel form, she steps forward looking like an unstoppable goddess of vengeance ready to obliterate the enemy. Comedy break. A hilarious meta-interview pop-up appears where the webtoon mentor argues with a reporter that he didn't abduct her, he rescued her. The author really knows how to break the tension with top-tier humor. Darkness surges. Back in the high-stakes battle, Emmy's terrifying dark aura blazes, ready to protect everyone around her regardless of the cost. Swish! Just before she loses total control, Eli steps in, gently covering her eyes and casting brilliant, radiant light Marat magic across the hall. Shatter! The creepy Verban ambassador's dark barrier gets completely obliterated as he gasps in shock, realizing the true user of light, Marat, has finally revealed himself. Roar! The blonde noble prince shouts at the top of his lungs for the Imperial Guards to immediately seize and subdue all the Verban Kingdom conspirators. Flashback reveal. The sinister hooded spy had tried to paralyze the prince earlier using a dark blood relic, but Eli's light magic completely broke the curse. Step, step, heavy armor clatters across the marble floor as the fully armed Imperial Guards surround and drag away the defeated Verban envoys. Order is finally restored to the ballroom. Princess Carrie! Eli gently scoops up the exhausted black-haired Emmy in his arms, carrying her away from the chaotic battlefield like a true hero. The orange-haired noble girl watches in awe, realizing Eli intentionally flexed his legendary light Marat magic just to draw all the danger away from Emi. What an absolute legend! Holding her close against his chest under the starry night sky, Eli softly tells her she worked hard and can rest now, promising to handle everything else himself. Emmy's dark red eyes widen in total surprise as she looks up at him, finally feeling safe and cherished in his arms as the dramatic chapter comes to a sensational close. Talk about a dramatic exit. Just when Emi thought she was going under, Eli scoops her up in a classic princess carry while dropping protective light magic all over the place. Honestly, if my man doesn't cast high-level defense spells just to keep me safe, I don't want him. Clang! But hold on, the drama isn't over yet. Magic circles burst above her as Emmy suddenly finds herself tumbling straight out of the sky. Swoosh! Snapping back to consciousness midair, her dark red eyes pop open in sheer panic as she realizes gravity is about to ruin her day. Talk about a brutal wake-up call. Oof, out of nowhere, a pink-haired beauty leaps in for the ultimate clutch catch. She strikes a dramatic pose, casually asking Emmy what kind of iconic line she should drop for her grand entrance. Gotta love a hero who cares about aesthetic timing.
dizzy. Holding Emmy tight, our pink-haired savior teases Eli for layering on way too many protective spells, secretly wondering if he didn't trust her catching skills. But all that magic overload leaves poor Emmy totally lightheaded and swooning.
Realizing Emmy completely burnt through her mana by acting reckless earlier, the pink-haired girl decides it's time to pull a classic tactical retreat. She scoops up Emmy like a cute little backpack and books it before trouble arrives. Honestly, the chibi running animation here is peak comedy. Meanwhile, back on the balcony under the starry night, Eli adjusts his collar with that cold, brooding male lead energy. You can literally feel the aura shift from miles away. Russell, with dark chains of fate echoing around him, Eli vows to crush every single enemy standing in Emmy's way, right as the Grand Palace announcements echo through the hall. Dun dun dun, the Grand Ball is officially in full swing as high society heavyweights like Duke Morwen make their entry, but the real party's happening outside in the dark woods. Tap, tap, tap! Sprinting through the moonlit forest, pink hair carries Emmy to safety, while Emmy softly asks why a complete stranger would risk their neck for her. Inner thoughts hit hard. Our pink-haired hero gets totally flustered trying to explain their bond, overthinking if they're actually friends, before awkwardly blurting out that she's doing this purely out of righteousness. Okay, nobody is buying that, but nice try. Swish! Before they can share a sweet moment, a deadly yellow energy blade comes slicing straight out of the dark trees. Reacting on pure instinct, Emmy throws up a massive glowing mana shield to block the blast. Talk about lightning fast reflexes. The shield shatters the attack into glowing sparks, leaving pink hair totally stunned. Seriously, Emmy went from passed out damsel to actual force field tank in less than 2 seconds flat. A whole squad of creepy hooded verban assassins emerges from the shadows, arrogantly demanding that they hand Emmy over so they can harvest her dark power. Man, these generic cultists really love popping up at the worst possible times. Surrounded on all sides, pink hair sizes up the enemy squad, realizing these kingdom goons aren't messing around, and protecting Emmy while outnumbered is gonna take a miracle. Remove, calling out the assassins for acting like total hypocrites and creepy kidnappers, pink hair suddenly reaches up to her head with a mysterious smirk. Wait, what is she doing? Toss. With a clean flick of the wrist, off comes the long pink wig, revealing a short-haired officer in full disguise. Emmy's chibi face literally explodes in shock. Honestly, the wig twist caught all of us off guard. When the head assassin tries to justify their evil plot as true righteousness, our short-haired officer completely loses his temper and drops a hilarious flurry of colorful insults. Look at Emmy desperately holding them back like an angry chihuahua on a leash. Grab. Patting his shoulder, Emmy steps up with a sharp glare, telling him to stay calm and let her take the lead. You know things are about to get real when the main character gets that cold look in her eyes. Channeling the chaotic wisdom of her webtoon mentor, Emmy remembers that she's free to do whatever she wants. And if that means rebelling against a bunch of masked creeps, she's all in. That sinister little smirk is absolute perfection. Chapter title break. The dramatic aesthetic takes a breather as the elegant main squad artwork pops up, reminding us that no matter how villainous our girl acts, she's still the absolute star of the show. Stepping right into the spotlight, Emmy coldly warns the assassins that attacking her means declaring full war against the entire Morwen family. She's talking mad game for a little kid, and honestly, we love the confidence. She starts picking apart their entire grand plan with scary precision, explaining how Verban's fake dark magic is nothing compared to true light Marat. You can literally see the head assassin sweating under his mask as she breaks down their political secrets. Pointing out every single flaw in their strategy, Emmy leaves him sweating bullets, wondering if this little girl is actually some legendary overpowered monster in disguise. Bluffing level 100. Glow. Standing tall, surrounded by floating butterfly sparks, Emmy drops a final stern warning, telling them that neither she nor her officer ally are easy targets. Talk about psychological warfare at its finest. Point? Behind her back, Emmy secretly signals pink hair to get ready for a fast escape. Our officer realizes she was just buying time with her intellectual rant the whole time. What a brilliant little strategist. Given a quick thumbs up, pink hair gets the cue. Emmy turns around with terrifying dark red eyes, daring the assassins to make their move, if they dare. Swish! A massive dark swirling aura surges around Emmy. The panicked assassin leader screams for his men to cast defensive barriers immediately, completely falling for her act. Snap! But instead of unleashing a dark curse, Emmy snaps her fingers and throws an explosive paper talisman. Boom, boom, boom! A massive fireball explosion detonates right in their faces.
Clear! The smoke clears and the ground is completely empty. Emmy tricked them all. The enraged assassin leader fumes in chibi rage, screaming at a squad to chase after them into the night. Cackling like a menace, Pink Hair runs through the woods with Emmy, utterly dying of laughter that the terrifying assassins actually bought her fake attack bluff. Emmy blushes with total embarrassment, confessing that her dark power just flared up because she got mad earlier, and she actually has zero clue how to use it. Fake it till you make it, right? Shoot! Sprinting up a steep hill, they suddenly hit a dizzying drop. It's a dead-end cliff. But Pink Hair just winks and promises to take her through a special shortcut. Uh-oh, I don't like the sound of that. Jump! Without missing a beat, he leaps straight off the cliff holding Emmy in midair under the glowing full moon. Poor Emmy's soul practically leaves her body as she accepts her fate. Man, this girl cannot catch a break tonight. Land! They pull off a flawless chibi landing right on the front lawn of the glorious Morwin estate. Out of all the wild escape routes, jumping off a cliff straight into the home yard takes the crown. Waiting right at the iron gates is none other than the handsome blonde butler with glasses, bowing with absolute elegance. Now that's what I call five-star service. But don't let that polite smile fool you. He turns his glare toward the tree line, calling someone out as a useless piece of trash. Yikes, the aura shift on this man is terrifying. Chibi Emmy and Pink Hair blink in total confusion, wondering if the scary butler's trash-talking them after their heroic leap. Talk about awkward miscommunication. Swoosh! Suddenly, two persistent Verban assassins drop down from the night sky right behind them. These guys really don't know when to give up, do they? Dun dun dun! The assassin reaches out a clawed hand to snag Emmy, while Pink Hair desperately pulls out another talisman to fight. Slip! Before the assassin can even touch her, the blonde butler smoothly steps into frame, casually adjusting his pristine white gloves like he's about to wipe off some dust. Looking down with absolute contempt, he insults Verban's entire assassin guild, telling them to watch closely and learn what a real top-tier combatant looks like. Spark, pop, crack! A massive, blinding spatial magic circle ignites. In a split second, the head assassin gets completely disintegrated into literal dust. The remaining goons freeze in pure horror. Bro got erased from existence. Dizzy. With the threat vaporized, all the built-up pain and extreme fatigue finally crash over Emmy at once. Her eyes flutter shut as she begins to collapse onto the stone pavement. Miss Emmy! Pink Hair catches her right in the nick of time, sighing with relief that our exhausted little heroine is totally unharmed. Butler immediately breaks his cool composure, panicking in chibi mode and demanding that Pink Hair pass Lady Emmy over to him right this second. Now, prepare to die! Out of nowhere, the rest of the assassin ambush squad swoops down from the trees for one final desperate attack. Pink Hair tries to act like a bodyguard, telling the butler to hurry and carry Emmy to safety while he holds them off. But before he can even finish his sentence, swish. Swoosh! The butler blurs through the air at godlike speed, obliterating every single enemy in midair before they can even blink. Honestly, the animation budget for this butler's combat moves is through the roof. Adjusting his glasses without losing an ounce of grace, the butler cradles the sleeping Emmy safely in his arms with a cool, dangerous smile. And that is how you protect your young lady like an absolute boss. Boom! Out of nowhere, blinding light energy slashes right through the assassin ambush squad before they even realize what hit them. Talk about an absolute speed blitz. Swish! A total badass maid drops out of the sky, slicing up the leftover assassins with scary precision. Pink Hair just stands there in chibi mode, realizing he didn't even need to use his fancy talisman, while the butler casually praises Miss Canor for her clean knife work. Glow! Smoothly placing his hand over Emmy's forehead, the butler casts a golden magic circle that instantly seals away her overwhelming dark aura. Watching from the side, Pink Hair gets totally creeped out, wondering how a simple household butler can suppress high-tier dark magic like it's no big deal. Gulp. Holding the sleeping princess under the glowing full moon, the butler drops a low-key terrifying line, murmuring that as long as she breathes, she's never leaving his side. Yikes, talk about aggressive job dedication. Seriously, someone give this guy a raise or a restraining order. Meanwhile, back at the Grand Palace, the mood turns icy as a blindfolded noble lady in a dramatic rose dress casually calls out the uninvited Verban Kingdom intruders for ruining a perfectly fine party. She doesn't hold back at all, straight up accusing the hooded envoy of using a fake gift delivery as a cover for dirty tricks. She cold shoulders him, asking if Verban is seriously trying to start another full-scale war right now.
Silence. You could cut the tension in the room with a butter knife as the entire royal court glares down the lone hooded messenger, waiting for his next move.
Stepping in with a smooth, dangerous smile, the silver-haired Duke chuckles it off, telling the envoy not to take offense since kids just love speaking their minds. Talk about a masterclass in passive-aggressive diplomacy.
The hooded creep just smirks under his cloak, claiming Verbin will take full responsibility for their noisy subordinates, and promises an exceptional gift as a formal apology. Honesty check, whenever a villain says exceptional gift, it's 100% cursed.
Bad vibes. Looking on with sweat dripping down his face, the blonde young prince realizes this mysterious box is the exact source of the awful bad feeling he had all night.
Gasp! The envoy drops a massive bombshell, announcing that the gift involves the long-lost former princess of the empire, Her Highness Liliana. To understand why everyone's losing their minds, we gotta rewind the clock. Kapir and Verbin have been bitter arch-rivals locked in endless conflict for centuries. Look at this lore drop frame. The art department went all out. 13 years ago, the Verbin kingdom cheated by channeling their creepy, glitchy evil god to unleash a horrific cursed plague, forcing Kapir into a desperate total war that cost countless lives. Heroes assemble! The young Duke Morwen charged the front lines, Emperor Renal locked down the capital's magical barrier, and Princess Liliana single-handedly cleansed the plague with her holy purification magic. Clash! It was an absolute bloodbath, pitting divine faith against unhinged zealots, leading all the way to the fateful night before the final clash inside a quiet chapel. Standing before the holy altar, Princess Liliana prepares to throw herself onto the front lines, but her brother confronts her, demanding if she's being this reckless just because the man she loves took a hit. Tears. She doesn't say a word, but those tear-filled eyes say everything. She's already made up her mind, no matter the cost. Her brother's voice breaks as he pleads with her, reminding Liliana that she's literally the only family he has left in this world. Man, the lighting and emotion in this scene are genuinely top tier. Liliana reminds them of their sacred royal duty. The monarchy exists to protect its people, because without the people, a kingdom is nothing but empty stone. Shining like a literal angel, she insists it's her sole destiny as the Yumen to eradicate evil, while her brother despairs, screaming if she really has to sacrifice herself when time is running out. Sob! With tears streaming down her face, she asks him not to stop her, leaving her two tiny newborn babies in their care and begging them to guide the next generation's Yumeng. Look at these adorable little babies holding hands in their sleep. They have zero clue about the heavy fate resting on their tiny shoulders. Flames! Cut back to the final battleground. Smoke and ash cover the sky as the Allied forces get pushed to their absolute limits. A younger, female-disguised pink-haired knight pants heavily on the bloody battlefield, realizing the enemy's endless dark regeneration is unwinnable, when suddenly a deadly arrow zips right toward her face. Shield! Duke Morwen instantly flashes in front of her, taking the heat like an absolute unit. Can we talk about how Duke Morwen always shows up right in time? Peak main character energy. With a massive magic circle blazing behind him, the Duke snaps at her to keep her head in the game and stop spacing out on a live battlefield. Crackle! Just as he warns her to watch out for cursed weapons, ominous cracking sounds begin echoing through the sky itself. Holy crap! The sky literally fractures like glass, revealing a pitch-black dimension dripping with demonic blood-red eyes? Talk about absolute nightmare fuel! Emerging straight out of the dimensional tear is the terrifying, multi-eyed evil god of Verbin, opening its creepy golden eyes upon the doomed world. Recap moment. Just in case you forgot how terrifying this deity is, look at the glitchy aesthetic on this monster. It's like a cosmic horror nightmare come to life. As pink hair trembles in sheer horror, Duke Morwen stands his ground, coldly explaining that this grotesque monstrosity is the literal god worshipped by Verbin. Covered in blood, the Duke turns to his battered troops, issuing a final stern order to hold the line until reinforcements arrive. Rah! Raising his bloody blade toward the scarlet sky, he roars that they are Kapir's final line of defense, rallying his men for one last desperate stand. But human willpower is nothing against a cosmic god. With one deafening screech, the deity wipes out every living soul on the field, painting the entire world in crimson red. Purgatory! Skeletons crawl from the blood-soaked ground as Pinkhair lies collapsing in the dirt, barely able to draw breath amidst the ultimate devastation.
Watching Duke Morwen stand alone amidst the carnage, Pinkhair realizes their entire battalion was erased, while even the enemy troops ran for their lives from their own psychopathic god. Mental breakdown. Swallowed by intense guilt, grief, and hatred, Duke Morwen forces himself to stay standing, repeating to himself that he cannot fall until Liliana comes back. Lying paralyzed in her own blood, Pinkhair desperately screams at her body to move and pick up a sword, watching the Duke fight a hopeless battle alone. Drip, drop. Blood drips from his sword as Duke Morwen digs deep into his soul for one last reserve of strength. The hooded cultists surround him like vultures, mockingly asking if he's seriously going to keep struggling when everything is already over. Chills. Fyodor slowly raises his face, dropping a terrifying, blood-soaked villain smirk that would make anyone's skin crawl. Honestly, this guy's aura is unmatched. He straight up roasts them to their faces, mocking these dogs for hiding behind a tiny girl god. Man's battalion just got wiped out, and he's still dropping peak trash talk. Bam! When the cultists ask if he really thinks he can defend the Empire alone, white feathers rain down as a massive divine magic circle erupts around him, and he smirks, asking who said he was alone. Angelic arrival. High in the sky, Princess Liliana descends like a holy six-winged archangel, chanting ancient divine scriptures as blinding heavenly light floods the battlefield. Fyodor looks back at the cultists, warning them that they won't get the last laugh, while the evil god prepares for one final cataclysmic clash against the Yu Meng. Final showdown! The evil god readies its dark energy to crush the divine light once and for all. Unleashing every ounce of her holy power, Liliana turns the tide, bringing a sudden, temporary end to the brutal 3-year war, leaving both kingdoms utterly devastated and locked in a grim stalemate. Heartbreak. After waking up from a long coma caused by his horrific injuries, Fyodor receives the single worst news imaginable. Princess Liliana has completely vanished without a trace. For 10 long years, Fyodor endured unimaginable loneliness, single-handedly raising little Emmy while obsessively hunting for any clue about his missing love. What the actual heck? As the Verban envoy removes the red cloth, Fyodor stares in absolute horror as inside the brass sphere floats Princess Liliana's actual blue eye. What a sick twist! Talk about starting a video on a total shocker. What happens when a shady messenger hands you a golden artifact holding your lost lover's actual eye? Instead of breaking down, Fyodor's dark magic instantly flares up as he coldly demands why this envoy insists on picking a fight. Swish! In a fraction of a second, razor-sharp ice spears materialize out of thin air, pointing straight at the guy's throat. But check out this creepy envoy. He's just standing there with a calm smile like he didn't almost get turned into a pincushion. Talk about having zero survival instincts. Crackle! The atmosphere turns completely suffocating as a blood-red aura surges from Fyodor's body. His crimson eyes glow with pure murderous intent as he wonders out loud if the Verban Kingdom forgot who he is just because he hasn't painted a battlefield red in a few years. Sweat drops down the envoy's face as he realizes Fyodor's aura is no joke, while the blonde prince panics, thinking his uncle might actually murder the messenger on the spot. Meanwhile, look at the Duke and the blindfolded lady in chibi mode casually enjoying the drama in the background. Manhwa's side characters really have their priorities straight. Stab? Just as the tension reaches a boiling point, young Eli steps up with a heavy sigh and interrupts his father, casually remarking that if an envoy traveled all this way just to die, they should at least let him speak before chopping his head off. Staring down at the artifact, Eli hesitates before softly mentioning that his mother's remains are still trapped in that sphere. The emotional weight in his eyes in this panel is subtle, but man, you can really feel how much this kid is hurting inside. Hearing Eli's words, the envoy's eyes widen before he smoothly bows, offering the floating eye orb directly to the young lord, as if he's handing over a grand prize. Glow. As soon as Eli's fingertips touch the brass frame, a radiant chain of golden light materializes, wrapping tightly around the sphere. And right on cue, the envoy drops a sinister smirk. You just know something bad is about to go down. Bingo! The envoy internally celebrates, realizing the magical chain proves Eli is the new divine Yu Meng heir. Their disgusting stunt was never just a provocation. It was a trap to expose the next target for Verban.
Suddenly, the mood completely flips. We cut to a bright, peaceful hospital room in the modern world, where a soft melody echoes through the air as someone sits by the window reading a book. Talk about a massive genre shift.
Closing the book with a quiet sigh, a blue-haired girl wearing an eye patch sheds a single tear, murmuring how tragic that story's ending was. Wait, hold on. Was the entire fantasy world we just watched literally a webtoon this girl was reading in her hospital bed?
Next to her bed, another patient lies fast asleep under the warm sunlight, totally unaware of the wild emotional roller coaster happening right beside him.
Looking straight at us with a mysterious smile, the eye-patched girl raises a finger and drops a chilling line, promising to give everyone one final chance. Is she about to transmigrate right into the story? The hype is real.